David, you're right here. Ready? Good. Well, good morning, everybody. Hope everyone's having a great day and had a great opening general session. I want to welcome you to the 2024 Ag Innovation Challenge Pitch Competition here at the Cultivation Center Stage. My name is Chase Heineman, and I am the Director of Industry Relations here at American Farm Bureau Federation. The Ag Innovation Challenge is a national business competition showcasing U.S. startups developing innovative solutions that address challenges facing America's farmers and ranchers and rural communities. In the program's 10 years, Farm Bureau is proud to have awarded over $1 million. Companies from across the country applied, and the applicant pool was then narrowed down to 10 semifinalists, selected and evaluated by Farm Bureau and Farm Credit's Rural Investment and Innovation Working Group. The 10 semifinalists have been awarded $10,000 and competed in person this past Friday to narrow to the final 4 teams, each of whom won an additional $5,000 and are here to compete today. In just a few moments, these companies will pitch their business to a team of judges with expertise in entrepreneurship, innovation, business development, and agribusiness. Judges will determine the Ag Innovation Challenge winner, who will be awarded a total of $50,000 in startup prize money, and an Ag Innovation Challenge runner-up, who will win a total of $20,000 in prize funding. Before we proceed, I'd like to take a moment to thank our challenge sponsors for their generous support. All sponsors, please stand or wave if you are in the audience today. I'd like to start off by thanking Farm Credit and those in the Farm Credit system, Bayer Crop Science, John Deere, Farm Bureau Bank, Farm Bureau Financial Services, and T-Mobile. I would now like to welcome to the stage Todd Erickson from Farm Credit Bank of Texas. We could not have this program without our partnership with Farm Credit, and I would love to invite Todd to the stage to provide a few remarks. Todd?
So, hello, everybody. Farm Credit started providing consistent access to credit over 100 years ago, and we've been doing it since. It started out as row crops, right? Row crop input financing, but over the years, the ag economy has evolved, and now we're to the point where we provide input financing across the country, every county in the nation, but we also provide financing for term loans for ranch and farms, term loan and other financing for food production for our farmers, fiber for forestry, cotton, sawmills and processing and gins, and support the cooperatives across the country that a lot of you may be members of. As we've been doing that, now we've seen a demand and a need from our customers and from our rural economies to invest in capital that goes beyond loans and lines of credit. That is startup capital, young and beginning and small farmers, growth equity for those entrepreneurs out there that are ready to take the next step. And this program is great for that. You know, the benefits to rural economies of this non-debt capital and the financing that goes in to support entrepreneurs like what we're trying to do here is, first of all, bringing solutions for on the farm and on the ranch problems. Second, bringing jobs out to the rural economy. And third, the economic multiplier that comes to economies when you bring jobs out there. They spend money at the local shops. There's a place for students that go off to university to come back to and generate value. And we love to kind of help to build that ecosystem as we go through time. Farm Bureau has been an ideal partner to work with on this. 10 years. 10 years. And it turns out the judges here that come through every year are amazing at picking winners. Their hit rate historically has been fantastic. It's maybe the most difficult job, right? We got to go from 60, 70, 80, whatever, down to 10. all 10 are my favorites. I'm sad that they didn't get to be in the Final Four. The judgment of getting from 4 to 1 is going to be even more difficult. What I'd like to highlight is a couple of things. After this, first, appreciate the judges. We'll give them a round of applause in a second. But for all the contestants who had the guts to get out there, commit themselves to these new businesses, commit themselves to getting up on stage and exposing themselves, when they're finished and coming out, resting on the side of the stage, come up, greet them, say hi to them, especially if there's an introduction that you could make to your farm bureau back in your home state. The customers or future customers they might meet are incredibly important as a part of this competition, okay? Chase will do the judges thing. These guys have a tough job. I look forward to seeing how this plays out. Thank you all very much for your attendance. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you so much, Todd. Next, I have the pleasure of introducing last year's winner of the Ag Innovation Challenge, Will Walls and Adam Bronji from Nordef, a high-impact technology company that aims to reduce harmful nitrogen oxide emissions and greatly reduce single-use plastics by producing diesel exhaust fluid at the point of use. So gentlemen, welcome today. I'll scoot over here so you can get the full camera shot. Well, welcome and congratulations again. We're so excited to have you back here at convention. I just want to give you a chance to give some remarks and would love to know what winning the Ag Innovation Challenge meant to you all, how you have been able to use the funds and how Nordef is doing and what you see in the future.
Yeah, thanks Chase for having us back. We've used the money, the last year we've used the money to further our patents, protect our technology, keep competitors from taking our idea really, but that's incredibly expensive, and getting all that in place has helped us communicate, talk about our technology, build our awareness campaign of what we're trying to solve, the problems we're solving. Also, taking our technology from proof of concept phase to prototype phase has been great to use what we won last year towards that.
Yeah, I think everything that we learned here, not only from the winnings obviously, but the network of folks that we got to meet really solidified our technology and the idea that we had. Anybody that's dealt with diesel exhaust fluid has likely had a pain point at some time, and there was a lot of validation last year coming to the conference and having those folks say, yeah, you guys are onto something, don't sell out, they'll put you on a shelf, keep going.
Well, Adam and Will, we appreciate you all being here. Congratulations again for your win last year. Hope you enjoy convention.
Thank you,
and thanks so much. Good luck in the future, Nordef.
Thanks, Chase.
Thank you, guys.
Let's give them a round of applause. Well, now I'd like to introduce today's judges that we're lucky to have with us today to judge the competition, the very unenviable job of judging the competition. I'd like to start with David G. Brown, President and CEO of Western Ag Credit. David is a native of Colville, Utah, where he was raised on a dairy farm. He has been with the Farm Credit System for 30 years, working in credit, operations, and leadership roles. He started his career with Western Ag Credit in 1993 as a loan officer and has served as President and Chief Executive Officer since 2016. He and his wife, Jennifer, have 4 adult children and 3 grandchildren. So thank you for being here, David. We appreciate you judging. Let's give him a round of applause to David. Next, I'd like to introduce Angie Bailey, President of Oregon Farm Bureau. You got a cheer already. As a 4th-generation farmer, Angie's background in agriculture is lifelong. Having grown up on a tree nursery in Portland, Oregon, she has firsthand experience with the day-to-day challenges facing agriculture. In 2005, after educational and other career pursuits, Angie and her husband Larry, along with their 2 young daughters, returned to the farm to build their life there. They continue her family's legacy of growing Japanese maples, monkey puzzle trees, and other specialty nursery stock on their family farm in the Gresham area. Angie is beginning her 4th year as president of Oregon Farm Bureau. Her extensive advocacy and communications training has given her the tools to be an effective voice for Oregon agriculture, President Bailey, thank you for being here and being a part of the judging panel. Let's give her a round of applause. And rounding out the judging panel, I'd like to introduce George Goff with Bayer US Crop Science. George Goff manages public and advocacy programs for Bayer Crop Science in the Western U.S. In this capacity, he works to protect the company's business interests at the state and local level and align with customers to promote policies that support production agriculture. Prior to joining the legacy Monsanto company in 1999, George spent 7 years with the California Cattlemen's Association lobbying environmental quality, natural resources, taxation, transportation, and general agriculture issues before state legislative and regulatory bodies. He started his professional career as a field representative for the California Canning Peach Association. George, welcome. Thank you for being here. Let's give him a round of applause. As all judges, thank you again for being here and sharing your expertise with us here today. So I'd love to get the show started and get these companies up here and let them tell you about their innovative ideas. Just some housekeeping notes. Finalist teams will have 3 minutes for their pitch. We'll have one individual from their team come up here, and another individual may come up afterwards as a part of the Q&A from the judges, which will last 5 minutes, not 15. We don't have time for that, so sorry. 5 minutes for questions about their businesses. Judges will be rating teams on innovation, business viability, rural impact, amongst other criteria. So I would like to first welcome our first team, Appuse Manufactured Products, an Iowa Farm Bureau member. Here to represent Appuse Manufactured Products is Mark Mendick. Mark, take it away.
Thank you all for being here. In 2022, 7.5 million acres were destroyed by fires, costing a staggering $3.2 billion in damage. This includes crops, equipment, livestock, and even homes. If you haven't been personally affected by a fire, I'm sure you know someone who has. According to the National Fire Protection Agency, it takes volunteer fire departments an average of 14 minutes to respond to a fire. By then, it's usually too late. So we need a solution to empower farmers to become their own first line of defense with a portable fire system. My name is Mark Mendick. I'm an engineer, volunteer firefighter, and owner of Appuse Manufactured Products. We've developed a game-changing fire suppression unit for the ag industry that we call the Farm Skid. This unit is a compact pump and motor system with a built-in water tank between 35 and 75 gallons. The system uses up to 80% less water than a traditional firefighting method. The secret? Ultra-high pressure technology, or UHP. This unit is specially designed to spray water into, This unit has a nozzle that's specially designed to spray water with up to 60 times smaller water droplets to absorb the heat of the fire faster. Now, it can be mounted on tractors, combines, farm implements, UTVs, or even in the bed of your pickup. Equipment on the farm and ranch, though, has to be versatile and practical. Our unit does just that. It has a small auxiliary reservoir where you can put non-toxic firefighting foam, herbicide, soap, or other chemicals into the system. It will automatically inject it will automatically inject it into the system to allow you to use this as a versatile product that can spray fence lines with herbicide or even just spray off equipment with soap and water. Other companies have developed these types of systems, but most are not ultra high pressure and not designed for the farm and ranch operation. With 10 units already in operation today, we plan to scale to 500 by year 3, transforming fire suppression. But to achieve this, we need to bring manufacturing in-house to better respond to our customers' needs. Farm Bureau's Ag Innovation Challenge prize money is vital to our success, but we need to bridge the gap between farm insurance companies and farmers themselves. With your help, Appuse will revolutionize fire suppression on farms by preserving the rural way of life that we all know and love. Thank you.
We'd like to go to, thank you, Mark. We'll transition to Q&A. Judges, I open up to you.
So you said there are other competitors out there in the UHP space.
Yes, sir.
Do you have any technology that's patented to help keep you in your niche?
So the ultra high pressure technology itself was actually developed by the US Air Force. So as far as the technology is concerned, no company can patent that. But what makes our product different from others is that we have kind of a proprietary plumbing system that withstands those heavy duty applications that you see on the farm and ranch. In addition to that, we also, along with that proprietary information, we are also attacking the insurance realm of things. We're trying to connect the farmers and the insurance agents in order to try to uplift both sides and provide an advantage to both units.
Thank you.
Yeah.
That I want to follow up to that comment you just made about connecting the farmers to insurance. So obviously Farm Bureau being an insurance provider, how do you see if as a farmer, if I have this unit, how do you see that affecting my insurance rates? Do you have any idea how that's going to work?
So what we're trying to do is we're trying to incentivize fire protection for the entire community as well as individual farms. So what we've been doing is trying to work with insurance companies. Say you have a combine and you're trying to insure it. Instead of having a $25,000 deductible, if they have this unit on the farm, an on-demand fire suppression unit, maybe we can decrease that to $10,000 deductible.
So I think that you have a really unique, innovative idea here, and I really like the applications beyond the fire suppression, although that's very integral to our communities right now. Can you expand just a little bit more on like the pesticide applications and other things that this versatile piece of equipment can do?
Yep. So the unit actually has the ultra high pressure nozzle for that fire suppression application. But what you can do is it's got a quick detach fitting, so you can remove that and put a pressure washer wand on there, turning it into just a regular, it's running at 1200 to 1500 PSI. So at the end of the day, it's just like a standard pressure washer, but you can take it out into the field to wash off equipment. But that auxiliary tank is what you can put firefighting foam or herbicide or whatnot into. And then there's a proportioning valve where you can set how much you're injecting into the system. So our goal was to try to develop a system that's not just going to sit off to the side and wait until there's a fire. We wanted a system that's integral into the everyday opportunity, everyday actions of farmers and ranchers, and give them a chance to use it in multiple facets.
How much do you see this unit costing? Where's your price point on it?
Yeah, they start at roughly $7,500, which may sound expensive, but when we're protecting a $300,000 combine or a cotton stripper, it's an inexpensive way to add protection to your farm or ranch operation.
And currently, what would a grower have besides maybe an extinguisher in their cab? Is there any other systems that are out there that quite fit the same?
So there are systems called CAFS systems, which is compressed air foam. But the problem with that is it's a lot to make. You have to make sure it's always maintained. It's got a high pressure tank of air, and all it's doing is spraying foam onto a system. So it's good for fire protection, but at the end of the day, that's all it's used for. In addition, it's got only the foam aspect of it, not the water side to it as well.
Gotcha.
How easy is it to, so this is mounted to an implement, so fire breaks out, very simple process to access it and put it to work?
Yep, it runs on a Honda engine. We're also actually developing a battery-powered option for farmers too, but it runs on a Honda engine. You can have electric or manual start, And it's something where we've found a lot of farmers, when they're going out to say bale hay, they've usually got a ranger sitting out there in the field with them as well, or a truck. So having this unit just on standby gives farmers lots of peace of mind.
Thank you so much, Mark. Let's give Appuse Manufactured Products another hand. All right, we'll move along here. We're going to give our judges just a moment to tabulate their scores, but while we'll do that, I'd just like to let you all know that the winners, the winner, runner-up, and People's Choice Award for the Ag Innovation Challenge for 2024 will be announced tomorrow at the closing general session early on, so we hope that you all can make it there and listen to those announcements. Moving on here. All right, now let's move on to our second team to pitch today, Barn Owl Precision Agriculture, a Colorado Farm Bureau member. The team is led by Sarah Hinckley, and she will be joined later by Brian Stafford in the Q&A portion. So Sarah, take it away.
Hi everyone, I'm Sarah, CEO and co-founder of Barn Owl Precision Ag, and we're deploying the autonomous nano tractor as a service to create time and budget savings for small farmers. Growers today are facing some of the largest challenges of our time in production, labor, and environment. With chemical-resistant weeds, labor that's expensive and unreliable, and praying for rain that never comes, growers are having to decide if they keep growing or if they stop. And whatever is best for their families is what they're going to do. So our solution is small farm robots for field-based operations support. We operate this as a service, starting at $55 per acre. We use the per added service model so that growers can decide what tasks they want the precision robot to go on the field and do. These tasks are mostly precision weed control for in between the plants, precision spraying, planting, and harvest support. Our patent-pending technology incorporates a drone that maps the field first and then allows the robot to go out, and using that digital twin, the robot knows where every plant is, every row is, and then it can perform tasks on a more efficient and more precise basis. Using this technology, we're able to get centimeter accurate results, and this creates a 50% savings in labor and a 30% savings in inputs. We scale this system by using a regional hub model. This allows us to keep the innovative talent that our FFA and 4-H and young farmers and ranchers already have in our rural communities. And then the robots are allowed to be on farm and are safer with the hands that are working with them. We do a fleet approach, and so we go anywhere between 8 and 12 robots, and we can scale based on the farmer's needs. Our team has a great history of farming and ranching, and we've been able to gain the tech experience along the way to really perform the precision needed in operating a robot on your farm. We also have really incredible advisors from CU Boulder Robotics, Colorado State University, and the Colorado Department of Ag. Without our robots being in the field, farmers will have to decide and pick and choose what to do and when to do it. We won't ever get rid of the full tractor, but we'll be there to supplement when the tractor goes down, when all of the weeds come at once, or if we're just needing to step away from the farm for a day. We are deploying this autonomous nano tractor in a practical way, using innovative technology in the smartest way possible. Our mission is to help small farmers secure our food supply, save our climate, and rediscover love of the job. And I'd love to invite Brian Stafford on stage to answer any additional questions we have at this time. Thank you. I can't. I can come close up.
I think you said $55 an acre is the, how competitive is that relative to other options to accomplish the same thing?
Yeah, so we're competing mostly with hand labor, and in Colorado we're seeing per acre on the season anywhere between $700 and $1,000. So that creates between 50% and 70% savings. And we go per acre per visit, so we can do it once if, the season before we had like a no-till or reduced till approach, we might have to go twice, or if we had some really aggressive oats planted the year before, we might have to go 2 or 3 times. But even at the 4 to 6 visits, we're ending up about $150 to $200 per acre. So that's compared to $700 to $1,000.
Thank you.
And what's the time comparison for, the robot to do the work versus humans?
Yeah, so the humans comparison, we are much more efficient because we don't have to stop and take breaks. We can operate in 110 degrees, or we can operate at night as long as we have 2 owls to kind of manage the battery changes in the workflow like that. As far as a tractor, we go between the 6 and the 12 robots, we can do 90 acres in a day. And we operate at about 1.1 miles per hour, depending on the task.
So if I understand correctly, you're both the innovator, manufacturer, as well as then the provider of the service, but through a kind of a hub model.
Yes.
Can you explain that a little bit?
Yeah, so we understand that every region for a farm has very specific and different needs. And so using in-field sensing systems and our drone technology, we kind of establish a hub and use the farm bureaus, the USDAs, the people who are in that area who already understand to help us get on the farm, do demos to have the technology more applicable. And then we utilize the labor that already exists in that area, so farmers don't have to get rid of it. Or if somebody wants to go to Denver to be in a robotics job, they don't have to anymore. They can stay in their small town now.
So it appears that, if I'm understanding this right, your business model is you're selling, it's as a service. So the farmer doesn't buy the robot, they subscribe to your services.
Yes,
is that
that's correct.
So my guess is that a lot of them will probably need your services all at about the same time. So how do you overcome that challenge?
Yeah, so we have a 300-mile operating radius, and we just add more fleets. We can manufacture these in about 2 days, and they're $7,000 per unit, so cost and time isn't necessarily an issue. And then if a large grower does actually want or need the entire fleet, we can lease, but we need to kind of increase our security systems. And if you wanted to add on the security systems, kind of the data aspect of it, as far as leasing the fleet, that is in plans in the future, but we don't have that built today. On just kind of like the data aspect and the security of growers' data.
With this system, we do collect quite a bit of data through the drones and the robots themselves, and one of the big concerns, of course, is security. All of the personally identifiable information is stripped of that. The only thing remaining is GPS-related data, just so we're able to aggregate by region. Privacy, of course, is a top concern from everybody, so any photo we take on your farm will never, be connected back to you personally. It's just very important to us to keep it that way.
And how many units do you, at this time, have operating?
We deployed 11 last year over 3 different soil types, one very, very rocky, not like huge rocks, but about the size of your hand, one kind of sandy, and then one in between. That was in 3 different regions in Colorado, and then we also have clients on hold in Kansas and Arkansas and Wyoming, all in total, in just Colorado, a 33,000 acre wait list.
So what do you currently see as kind of the size of a farming operation that would employ your service, would hire you?
Ideally, we are best and most valuable on anything between 60 and 120 acres because we can operate that 90 acres per day. We can get in, spend that first hour just, we have to unload the robots at this point, but in the future we will be able to press a button and they all just go out and do their own thing. But the 10-acre farm is really, the 10 and 20-acre farm is really where we can do a lot of great work because then there's less capital risk in buying, a $250,000 tractor. We can just do this for $6 grand for the season, and that keeps our small farmers growing.
How do they do in mud?
They do okay in mud. So they're lightweight, 125 pounds, so they produce soil compaction, and it's about the same as you getting stuck in the mud when you walk through it, so about the same as our robots.
And the funding, what would you use it for?
We would use it to build another 8 of these, and then that would create $500K in revenue, and then train our team for the 24 season, and probably do a little bit of marketing because we're not so great at that.
Very good.
Thank you, Barnow at Precision Agriculture. Let's give them a round of applause. And we'll just take a couple of moments for the judges to tabulate scores. Okay, let's move on to our third team, Repro Health Technologies, Indiana Farm Bureau members. Here to represent Repro Health Technologies, we have Dr. Jim Donahue, who will be joined later during the Q&A by Dr. Michael Witt. Dr. Donahue?
Go Indiana. Producers, many Farm Bureau members have cattle, and efficient cattle production is crucial to sustainability. Our team is helping that sustainability. I'm actually a human fertility doctor and an embryologist. My other co-founder, Michael, is a biomedical engineer, and my third co-founder, Dave Dixon, is a large animal veterinarian. We have used our skills to create a completely new form of assisted reproductive technology. Conventional assisted reproductive technology in the cattle industry is artificial insemination, embryo transfer, and in vitro fertilization. IVF, the most advanced technology, is actually the least efficient. Only 25% of those eggs actually create an embryo. And there's been a 350% increase in utilization. So high utilization, high interest, poor results. This is due to two problems. Number one, technical, the embryos don't grow well in lab incubators. And number two, and the lab incubator is at a fixed temperature and it's a metal box. Number two, it's a process problem where producers have to send the eggs out of state to IVF labs to create embryos, and then they're going to ship them back. What we have created is the patented novel intravaginal embryo culture device. This thing you see in my hand actually has two culture chambers with it. The eggs and sperm go in here, and this attaches to a seeder, which everybody uses. The device goes into the cow. 7 days later, the embryos are incubated. We pull the device out, we uncork it, and then we basically transfer those embryos to a recipient, or we freeze them. This technology has been used in humans. I actually had the first human patient in Indiana in 17 that got pregnant with twins with this. And so we're taking a human tech and bringing it to the animal world. The benefits of these are obviously increased efficiency. It's multiple offspring of your best genetics compared to AI. Freezing embryos, which allows the producer to control supply and demand. And also, I think we're really improving sustainability by bringing the high tech to the farm. We plan to sell these devices as a package with semen separation media, the devices, and culture media to the veterinarians, who are the key opinion leaders in most communities. We have done customer discovery through Purdue, Rutgers, and Ag Launch. We have some farm trials scheduled through Ag Launch later this year. We are the recipients of a USDA Phase 1 SBIR grant, and we were in the top 3 of over 48 companies, and that's just literally come out in the last couple of weeks. We would like the Farm Bureau money to help us on our clinical trials at Rutgers and at Cal Poly. And so we hope that the Farm Bureau will join us and help us bring this technology, this new type of assisted reproductive technology, to their members. Thank you. And my co-founder, Michael.
All right, so the current technology has a lower percentage of success.
Yes, in 2013, there were about 85,000 IVF procedures done, almost 300,000 procedures done. The embryos created there was 34% of those eggs created in embryo in 2013, 27% of those eggs create embryos now. So the current technology isn't working. There's great promise. We've talked to a number of producers who've I did IVF with my cows, I got 18 eggs, one guy, Craig, in California, 0 embryos to show. And this is a story we hear over and over again when we talk to the farmers that are doing it, is that it's really inefficient. You know, I'm spending $1,200 with the conventional IVF, Transova, Bovitech Genetics. One of our trials that we're doing, they've been sending them to another company. She had 60 eggs and 15 embryos to show. You know, you're spending a lot of money to not get as many embryos. And when we look at the cost per embryo, actually this technology, because it's more efficient, lowers it down to lower than AI, because it's 1.8 AIs to make a cow. And the current IVF, it's about $350 per embryo. So, you know, there's a lot of economics that we think this technology, because of improved efficiency, is really going to help. So, yeah.
Does this change the process as far as how much technical expertise does someone need to have to be able to utilize this? Is it only to be done by a veterinarian or someone who specializes in IVF?
The large animal veterinarians right now are they're getting the eggs. You got to be able to find an egg, which they do. Ask Brett, get the egg, and then put the egg in the device. And Dave's a large animal vet. We have done everything at Dave's facility. We've made every mistake you can make. We put one of these in a cow, it fell out. We don't know where it went. We made a different device to hold it. It didn't work. Then we thought, why not a cedar? Because cedars have high progesterone, which is the early pregnancy stage. And then we attached it to the cedar, which makes perfect sense. So yeah, so basically if you're a reproductive vet, and I believe the vets are doing more, they'll make more money, and they'll be doing more at their facility instead of just getting eggs and shipping everything. So yeah, I think, and he's judging a cattle contest right now in Indiana, so he's at a cattle show, so he couldn't be here. But it's a lot of engineering, and I think just to understand, to make something that, like Michael.
Yeah. One quick point I'd like to make is, really this is an engineering problem, and one of the things I think that's unique about our team is that we see the problem from different perspectives. You know, my background is biomedical engineering, and actually it's been a good thing because I've been able to share it with my students at Cal Poly. His background is embryology. We have a third partner that's a large animal veterinarian. Really, at the end of the day, what are we doing? What we're doing is, he used the word efficiency. We're taking the same efforts that currently the cattle producers have. With those same efforts, they're now able to have a higher percentage success rate for fertility with those same amount of efforts. And as a result, it will have an effect on other metrics like their net present value and their efficiency value, if that's something that you can use. You know, with the same amount of effort, they're now going to have more success rate, and not only that, a higher quality of offspring because they can control the genetics. So there's a lot of things. Really, it's an engineering problem, and we're attacking it with all the things that, this is one of the things that we're doing as a company, but we're looking at other things that have a significant effect on improving the fertility rate.
Yeah. Yeah, you know, it's really a different incubator. Embryos grow in culture media, and it's either here in a cow or it's in a metal box. You know, and at the end of the day, when you think, what are we really doing here? We're growing embryos in culture media, and this is an incubator, and that metal box is an incubator. Well, what's better? You know, and her temperature changes throughout the day. She's out ruminating, she's walking around. That's what normally happens. This thing here, it allows carbon dioxide to pass through it to maintain the pH. It's at her temperature. We've had to learn a lot because nobody's ever done this, and you know, and going from humans to animals is different. It gives a job for dry cows, you know, because there's a donor cow, a recipient cow, and there's an incubator cow in the middle. And so this gives a job to the dry cow or your recipient cow. So there's some cows, they're just the incubator cows, which, you know, anatomically they're good for it, you know. And so we think we're giving a job to a cow that she can continue to do.
So you've talked a little bit about the current success rate with,
yes,
you know, the incubators.
Yeah.
What do you foresee the success rate being with this device?
We suspect about an increase from about 4 embryos to about 8 embryos per treatment cycle. There's about 18 eggs collected on average, and it's that improvement. So and that is literally 200,000 more cows in the United States just with that increase because of these large numbers.
That's a great question. One of the things about our IP, what makes it novel, useful, and not obvious, is patentable. What makes it novel? What makes it novel is we actually have 2 enclosures. As a result, we can get more embryos per cycle to getting to the blastocyst stage. What makes it not obvious is there's some material things that, with gas permeability, that make our increase rate, and increases the success rate for fertility.
And
so those are the 3 things with our IP.
And thank you, that is our
in
time.
the US, EU, and Brazil, those are the main IVF countries where our patents are currently are, is those 3 regions of the world.
Gentlemen.
Well, thank you.
Thank you, Repro Health
Appreciate it.
Technologies. Let's give them a round of applause. We'll take another pause to let the judges tabulate scores, but just wanted to let you know that at the Farm Credit booth today, right after the Ag Innovation Challenge competition, pitch competition wraps today, Nordef, our 2023 winner, will be over there, I believe, until 3 p.m. So if you would like to chat with them, see how the winning 2023 helped them and their company, see what their future is, please head over there. They'd love to chat with you. So we'll be back in just a minute. All right, let's head up, begin with our fourth and final team this afternoon. We have Utterway's New York Farm Bureau members. The team is led by Zachary Neal, and he will be joined later in the Q&A by Jody Neal. Utterway's?
Thank you. Good afternoon. My name is Zach Neal, co-founder of Utterways. Dairy farmers have been prepping cows to be milked the same way for years. They either have an overcomplicated prep tool with high subscription and maintenance costs, or a traditional routine burdened with laundry-related costs. Both systems cause cross-contamination, which is detrimental to cow health and milk quality. They have extreme maintenance costs and have unreasonably high initial investment expenditures. Our prep tool, the Vortex, is the perfect solution for both types of farmers. It eradicates cross-contamination, is low maintenance, and eliminates the need for laundry machines, as well as the associated costs. Milkers will greatly appreciate the Vortex as well because it is virtually weightless in operation, meaning it can be used for an entire shift with minimal discomfort. Our device also has a small initial investment cost at 1/4 the price of our competitors. Along with a reduced upfront cost, the Vortex will also have a lower monthly subscription rate, meaning it's almost a no-brainer for farmers to switch to our device. Our patented Vortex technology provides superior stimulation through oscillation, which increases the speed of milk letdown, heightening parlor throughput and efficiency, meaning that more cows can be milked per hour. Although the Vortex has only been manufactured as a handheld device, our patent is broad enough to allow us to use the Vortex technology in robot parlor applications. There are other prep tools on the market. They have broken the barrier and convinced farmers that prep tools work. However, with their high costs and overcomplicated systems, they have created a fantastic opportunity for our tool to work on farms that aren't satisfied with their current tool or are still using traditional methods because they simply couldn't afford the massive initial investment associated with these prep tools. Our end users are dairy farmers of any size, but we are targeting dairy distribution companies primarily because they can quickly open us up to a large customer base instead of going farm by farm. Most distribution companies have a labor shortage at the moment, meaning that a simple, low-maintenance tool like the Vortex is ideal for them. These companies will sell the Vortex on a subscription-based model, as this is what farmers have become accustomed to with current prep tools on the market. A subscription model means there's low upfront cost for the farmers, and it also creates a recurring revenue stream for Utterways. So far, we've tested over 50 different prototypes on farms in New York and Wisconsin. We also have a beta prototype and turnkey plan for commercial manufacturing. Up until this point, Utterways has been self-funded. Our biggest challenge is distribution. Your funding will help us collaborate with a distribution company and test farms. Then we will begin commercial manufacturing and start distribution. Utterways saves farmers time and money while improving milk quality and cow health by eliminating cross-contamination, and we do all this at a lower price point than anything else in the market. In conclusion, we make happy cows, happy milkers, and happy farmers. Thank you. Would you guys like to see our prototypes? Yeah.
So is this the one that's currently kind of the leader?
No, currently what?
Is this the winning model right here?
Yes,
Yes,
okay.
sir.
That's our current prototype.
So why the subscription model versus just selling the producer the tool and the things they need to use it?
With existing tools on the market, farmers have become accustomed to the subscription-based model, and that's something that they're comfortable with. So coming with something like this, they might be more comfortable adopting it with a model that they're familiar with.
So what will they get with that subscription model?
So the subscription model would give them this gun, and then they would have some sort of a chemical associated with it. That would be something that the distribution company provides. So for like a common price is $2 a month. We're hoping to be per cow per month. We're hoping to be at around $1.50 per cow per month. Farmers would have access to the complete unit that works in the parlor.
Talk about a little bit more about the robotic application with the robotic dairy.
So what we have our patent on is what happens with inside this cup. It's a vortex created by airflow and water to sanitize it. And so our patent allows this to be used on anything. So that can be an end factor on a robotic arm, or it could replace brushes on existing box robots.
Thank you.
And then how difficult is it for a dairy producer to switch over from what they're doing now, whatever their system is, to your system?
It would take about 3 to 5 days for the cows to get used to it. If a farmer is currently using a brush style gun or something that's fairly aggressive, the cows are used to that already. The main factor is there's a little bit of noise. And so you would just bump the air pressure up over about a 3-day period and then perfectly used to it.
As far as hardware though, most parlors are already set up for this. They can go in just
You
like
need
that.
air, water, and electricity, correct?
Yeah, so our system that we typically put out would be a 110 volt plug, 10 CFMs of air per gun, and a sanitization thing. But it also can go on with simply just water and air. So on a global market in other parts of the world, it may be a lot easier just to simply have the water, turn the air on, and turn it off when you're done.
So having milked a lot of dairy cows, this is a one-step process that washes, dries, stimulates, and strips. Is that right? Does it strip the cow?
It doesn't strip.
Okay, it doesn't strip.
So what happens is we go around the cow twice at the same, and wash the first time around, and then go around the second time, releasing the trigger, and the air continues. But during both passes, it still oscillates the teat, creating stimulation during that.
Which eliminates the need for that strip step.
So I'm understanding it's a two-step process. First time
Correct.
is wash, then you go back.
But you do it all while you're standing at that cow.
Okay. So you don't have to
And
leave her and come back.
Correct.
Yeah.
Talk about, if you would, maybe a little bit more about the economics of, you know, this product and sort of, I think you talked about the increased stimulation, which leads to quicker milking and milking more cows. Can you expand on that a little bit?
I can. So how we measure a cow's milk let down is what's called a bimodal, and that's if she starts to let her milk down and stop. And a farm wants that under 10%. And so when we started, we were at 28% on our farm, and instantly this dropped it down to about 8%. And so where that saves the farm time and money is that our prep main will match the timing of other tools, but when a cow lets her milk down faster, she's done milking faster, it's healthier for the cow, and then you put more turns in the parlor per hour.
So you talked about efficiency, timing. How about udder health compared to some other current systems?
So that's an easy one. Udder health on brushes, you're taking dirty material from a cow's teats and you're washing them around the brushes, and you're just flushing it with a little bit of liquid, using very highly concentrated liquid to try to kill that. With this tool, you're constantly flushing clean solution through, so there's no cross-contamination from the belts, from the brushes, from milkers' hands, from towels even, you know, if the laundry systems aren't working right.
So, so you're dairy farmers, you developed this, you've patented this. Why do you want to try to distribute it rather than sell this technology off to another company and take the royalties from it?
To start with, we feel it's very important to establish the value of it. You know, we want to prove it that it works real well. And there's some pride in how we developed this through the family and how we got to this point. And so, you know, we'd like to get it established and go from there. And that's what, you know, the funding would help us get the distribution.
Well, thank you all so much. Let's give a hand to Udderways.
Thank you.
We'll just give a couple minutes to the judges one last time as they tabulate scores. Outstanding pitches today by our teams. Let's give them all another round of applause. I want to thank you all for coming out and joining us today, and I want to also take another moment to thank our 3 judges. I know it's going to be an incredibly difficult time figuring out who's going to win. I do not envy you. And I also want to say thank you again to our partner Farm Credit, as well as our sponsors, Bayer Crop Science, John Deere, Farm Bureau Bank, Farm Bureau Financial Services, and T-Mobile. Thank you for your support. I would just ask if the final 4 teams could all join me here on stage. Let's give these entrepreneurs another round of applause, please. The 2024 Ag Innovation Challenge winner, runner-up, and People's Choice Award winner will be announced tomorrow during the closing general session starting at 11:30 a.m. I want to say good luck to these final 4 teams, and thank you again, all of you, for coming.
I am here on behalf of AFBF's Farm State of Mind Sounding Board. That's kind of a mouthful, really. I'm just like a stubborn old farm wife who just happens to care about the mental fitness of our farm families. So I am thrilled to introduce our next speaker, my new bestie. Amanda Nigg. She is the one you know as FarmFitMomma. This girl, I will tell you what, she has not let stress or trauma bring her down. In fact, she has used it to fuel personal growth and made it her mission to help you do the same, to redefine what it means to be farm strong. Let's welcome to the cultivation stage, Miss Amanda Nigg, FarmFitMomma.
All right. Oh. Not working. Oh, we got problems. Sure. All right. Well, I guess we're gonna improvise today. I'm excited. Well, who remembers this day? March 20th, 2020. Do you guys all remember that day? Let's be honest. Who remembers that day? We all do, because we all experienced it. Next slide. I'll just keep rolling. You know, March 20th, 2020 was one of the most devastating years of our lives. And I decided to do something that was nothing but short of pushing me outside my comfort zone, my purpose. On March 20th, 2020, we all experienced something that we were unexpected. We went into the unknown. The next day, for me and my family, we experienced something totally different. Does it work now? No? Oh, nope. Oh, well. Well, I guess you guys can see this image already and you know where I'm going. So on March 19th, 2020, the day before the national pandemic, my family experienced something that I will have to say was the most traumatic event I ever went through. That morning on March 19th, it was a typical morning. We were getting ready for the pandemic. I was in the garage getting my son ready for his last day of daycare before we went on a 2-week lockdown. And I remember we were rummaging through that garage looking for his favorite backpack, that special backpack that he had to have on his last day of daycare before we went into the lockdown. And as we looked through the garage, I couldn't find it. And I promised him, I was like, hey buddy, I'll get you your backpack, I'll bring it, no big deal. As soon as we get to daycare, I'll come back home and bring it to you. I got back home. As I was driving to daycare, I got a phone call from my husband. And my husband goes, and he kept calling me, and I was like, well, I'll answer the phone after I get Bo into daycare. I walked back to my car and missed 8 phone calls from my husband, 8. I get on the phone, and all of a sudden my husband says, the house is on fire. John and I climbed out the bedroom window. You need to get home. And if anybody knows my husband, he's the ultimate jokester. I did not grow up in agriculture, and he likes to joke and play tricks on me all the time. And he repeated again, the house is on fire. You need to get home. And that just hit me. As I'm driving 100 miles a minute on dirt roads, I shouldn't admit to that, to get home, I get a phone call from the fire department, and they're like, hey, is it the farm or is it the house? Because we lived half a mile from our original farmstead. And I said, it's the house, it's the house. As I pull down the driveway, I see this smoke coming from her garage. And I'm the type of personality that if I'm a fixer, I gotta fix a situation. So I instantly pulled up to the house and jumped out of my car, and I could hear my husband and my oldest crying as they come out of the horse barn. I ran up to the house as fast as possible, and I hit this post that knocked me flat on my back. After I hit the post, I instantly ran around back because I knew where the fire extinguisher was in the house. I get to the back of the house, and I see the flames coming out of the garage. And at that very moment, I knew I was too late. As we sat there and waited that 38 minutes, it only took 38 minutes for that local fire department, which is amazing. By the way, for volunteer, rural America, 38 minutes is like crazy. That 38 minutes seems like eternity as we're watching our forever home of just 4 years burn to the ground. The local fire departments showed up, and they started instantly working on our house seamlessly, putting out the fire. They started dragging hoses all over the place. Next thing you know, they called another fire department, and another fire department, and another fire department. Before we knew it, there was 5 local fire departments working seamlessly, trying to save our forever home. As we sat there and watched them all work seamlessly, I thought to myself, they're gonna get it, they're gonna stop it, we'll be able to get in, go get our stuff. It's not that big of a deal. Next slide. And as they're working seamlessly, I thought that 38 minutes was an eternity. So in the meantime, my husband is crying. And my husband's a type of farmer that doesn't like to show his emotions. He's one of those tough guys, I'll figure it out, no big deal. He broke down and started crying. And I remember thinking to myself, how are we gonna get through this? Like, what's next? Then I heard it. I heard this loud rumble come down the driveway, and that feeling of what the heck was coming down the driveway. It was an excavator. The local fire departments couldn't stop the fire, and this massive wind came from the west side of the house and pushed the fire through the whole entire house. They had decided to bring down an excavator to collapse our forever home on itself to stop the spread of the fire. As I'm watching this excavator rip apart our home that we just built, that feeling of lost, like, where do we go from here? The next couple days, I remember feeling numb. Like, I didn't know what direction to go. The next day was the national lockdown. We weren't supposed to see people. We had no belongings, no food, no clothes. Our community rallied behind us. I can't tell you how many people in agriculture brought us clothes, food. I mean, I even had to borrow a pair of underwear from a neighbor. We had absolutely nothing. During this time, I remember laying in bed, and I didn't want to get out of bed. I was at my mental lowest point. For me, I was struggling. As a mom, I couldn't even get up to go get food. We were staying with my husband's aunt and uncles. I couldn't even get myself to get out of bed to even shower. I was just at my mental lowest point. I turned to my husband 3 days after the house burnt down, and I was like, I need a sign. I need something. I was praying to God last night, and I told God, I just need something to give me hope, some glimpse in this traumatic event that our family just went through. My husband goes, well, what was that sign you got? And I said, something told me to go back to the house to get my wedding set. See, that morning that I dropped my youngest at daycare, I was going to work out as soon as I got back to the house. That was my ultimate goal. My gym was in our home, and I was like, I'm gonna work out. So as soon as I dropped him off, my plan was to go home and work out. And I don't wear my wedding ring when I work out because I'm lifting heavy weights. And so I told my husband, I was like, hey, I'm gonna go back to the house. I know this sounds crazy, but for me, I just need this one glimpse of hope. So my husband told me to go back to the house. He called 8 ladies surrounding our farm to meet me there. Within 30 minutes, they were there. They beat me there. They were there with shovels, they had metal detectors, they had it all. So as we walked around the house to get to the basement, we started using metal detectors, and like it was going off. It was like Christmas Day morning, like the metal detectors didn't work. So we started using our hands and shifting through the ground. And next thing you know, I hear his cousin pop up and go, I found your wedding set. And I was like, there's no way. So I turned back around, and there it was, my wedding set. The only thing I ever took from the fire. We found our wedding set, that mission impossible, that glimpse of hope that I need. As soon as we found my wedding set, we had to get out of there. The smoke came up. It looked like someone lit a match on the bonfire. The next couple weeks after that glimpse of hope, I was like, I can do this. We can get through this. My husband knew that fitness was such a huge component of my life. That is how I worked through any hardship, stress, mental challenges. He knew that fitness was my go-to. Well, my gym was in our house, so I lost everything. And in 2020, fitness equipment was like liquid gold. You couldn't get it. So my husband would go to our junk pile and bring me tires. And I remember that first time I lifted that tire, and I'd like to say it was like 250 pounds, but maybe 100 pounds, 45 pounds if the most. And I remember flipping that tire, and I was like, okay, this is not so bad, I got this. And then I flipped it again, and I was like, yep, I can do this. Like, I can work through this. Little did I know that I started posting online for motivation. I was like, you know what, I'm gonna start posting online and inspiring others to work through mental stress through a physical transformation. In March of 2020, I hosted a plank challenge. I was not certified at this time. I was like, you know what, I'm gonna put together this plank challenge. It's gonna be fun. It's gonna bring our community together. Because at this time, you know, we're all going through 2020. We're all dealing with the stressors of what 2020 brought to us. We're all dealing with that insecurity, the unknown, what's next, where are we gonna go from here? As I put this plank challenge together, I never expected to have over 800 farmers plus, I don't even know to the exact count, participate in this plank challenge across the world. We had people planking on tractors, bisons, ditches, everything. And it was just 30 seconds. 30 seconds of planking boosts your mental health, it aligns your body. Not only that, it de-stresses you. Something like that brought hope and raised awareness, and I was like, you know what? We need to create something. We need to find some kind of space that does that, and it lit that passion on fire for me. I was like, you know what, if I have to be that person to create a program where it's tailored to the agriculture industry, where we can come together, where we can become that unstoppable force. Later that year, I decided to go get certified. I went and got certified. My personal trainer did an online business course, and I knew that I had to bring this program online to make the type of impact that I wanted. After that, I launched a program called FarmFit Training. I don't have a lot of time to go through this. If you guys see on the monitor, scan that QR code, and you can get to know who we are, what we're about. Guys, there's tons of free information on there. We have like a 9 tips to fat loss. We go into nutrition health, physical health. We talk about mental health. We cover every aspect of it. This is not a one-size-fits-all. And that's the thing, when you talk about mental health, you might approach it through a physical transformation, or it might be something totally different. And that's the beautiful part about addressing and talking about mental health is there's different avenues for every single person. And for me, what really transformed my life was that physical transformation, that lifting the weights, pushing myself to the limit. And so little did I know, after launching FarmFit Training, I had hundreds apply instantly out the gate. And it was just such a humbling experience, and it showed me like, hey, People are interested. They want to hear about it. They want to know more about it. Then the next thing I knew, I was like, you know what? The greatest battle that we have with ourselves is with ourselves. And we need to demand more of ourselves than others do of us. We need to be honest with ourselves, but we also need to be true. Life is complicated. It's complicated for every single one of us, but the truth is not. I never thought I would launch a fitness business in the middle of the pandemic, especially going through the most tough, challenging year of my life. But this is just evidence that life is 10% what happens to you and 90% how you react to it. Is it going to be day one or one day? Thank you. Thanks, guys. Oh, I guess, what questions do you guys have? I'm supposed to do a Q&A here. What questions do you have about physical health, nutrition health, mental health? Remember, it is not a one-size-fits-all, especially when it comes to nutrition. I get a lot of questions about nutrition. A lot of people are, if you're anything like my husband, I told my husband I was launching a fitness business, and his biggest thing was like, woman, we have a freezer full of beef. If you're gonna tell me to eat chicken and rice for the next 6 weeks, like, what are you doing? You know, so we really educate the science and why behind nutrition, which is really unique. We educate more of like, hey, nutrition, it doesn't have to be, hey, you have to cut this out of your diet to be successful. Same with physical health. You know, we take everybody from every walk of life. So what questions do you guys have when it comes to physical, mental health, or nutrition?
Hello. For me, being a young mom and also being semi-part of the operation and then also working in ag policy, balance is really hard when it comes to all the things that you've just mentioned, especially working out, nutrition, work, being a mom. So my question to you is, how do you find that balance? How is it, you know, clearly you've had some success with this, so how are you able to find the balance of being a good, fulfilling mom, also be fulfilling at work, and then being able to take care of yourself?
I set boundaries for myself. How I found that balance is what I actually incorporated into FarmFit training. These are quick and effective workouts. I'm not asking you to work out an hour a day. I actually saw this case study. In this case study, it took two groups of people, 50-50. Had one group of individuals working out 15 to 25 minutes, going 4 rounds. And then it took another group of people having them work out 45 minutes to an hour. What they've noticed in the case study is that the people that had the shorter amount of time when they worked out were more effective because they hit failure sooner. They got into their workout. It was quick and easy for them. And so I took that methodology and applied it into FarmFit training. I'm not asking you to work out 45 minutes or to an hour. I'll be the first to tell you, I don't have the time. I like juggling a business, being active on our farm, but it's easy when you take that 15 to 25 minutes for yourself. And I think that's the biggest thing is sometimes we forget that we're our longest commitment and that we have to pour to our cup first before we can give to others. And so for me, and what I've incorporated into FarmFit training is those quick and effective workouts, like understanding nutrition, like diving into that, explaining the mind and body connection. There's a lot of information out there about supporting this science and this evidence of how, hey, 15 minutes of a workout, fueling your body to be the ultimate best can have a profound effect. And it also leads into our future generation, our children. Your children will see that, your spouse will see that. I have had countless men apply to the program, and next thing you know, their wife applies. Or we get pictures of farmers working out with their kids. It's a tripling effect that affects future generations. Thank you for that question, by the way. That was a great question. Anybody else have any other questions? Oh, I can't hear you. Oh, I still can't hear you.
Do any of your resources talk about like packing lunches, dinners during spring and fall, where you've got like a 6-week window that you're not at the table, you're still trying to not only eat healthy yourself, but you're trying to provide healthy alternatives in a lunchbox at lunch and dinner?
I love that question, and absolutely, yes. I'm a farmer's wife. My job, I always joke around, is I'm a wheel turner. That's my role, and also the cook. I cook on any given day. We have 5 to 8 hired men that come to our farm, and I feed our entire farm. I will be the first to tell you, I'm not making 2 different meals. I'm making one meal that fits us all. And so we do educate and we teach it. Like, we have lasagna recipes. Like, I have over 1,000 macro-friendly recipes that are not only gonna fuel you, but they're gonna fuel your crew. And so it's simple. Like, nutrition is seriously a beast, and just like you said, a lot of times when we approach nutrition, we don't understand it, or we don't know, like, for example, what the difference between protein, carbs, and fats are. So we really educate the science behind that, and we have a lot of materials. There's an ebook for free on my website called 9 Tips for Fat Loss, but the one I highly recommend is called Blueprint. I actually have recipes in there that you can use that are crockpot recipes that you can download for free. Yeah. Any other questions?
I'll ask one.
Oh, you're gonna put me on the spot.
No pressure, bestie. It's all right. You talked about mentally being at your lowest of lows, right? And the thing is, we don't all experience a house fire. That's wild. But we all feel lowest of lows sometimes. So what advice would you give people who are in that moment, or even what advice would you give people to prepare for that moment, that lowest of lows, to use their resilience and bounce back out? Any suggestions?
Reach out. Be open. Don't be afraid. Like, a lot of people are afraid to talk about mental health or when they're struggling because they view it as a weakness. And when you're vocal about it, when you seek help, when you reach out and to say, hey, I'm struggling right now, like, I need someone to talk to, that's a huge step. It is not being weak, it's being strong. It's showing that, hey, I need help and I need someone to communicate with and find a way to work through this. And for me, I reached out to my husband. You know, I told him, I was like, hey, I prayed to God. I needed something. And he was like, yep, let's go back to the house. I'll call these 8 wives and they'll meet you there. You know, and that situation wouldn't have happened if I didn't have his support. So I would have to say, definitely reach out to someone and don't be afraid to share. Any other questions? I think I'm out of time. All right, well, thank you guys. I appreciate you listening. If you're curious, like I said, scan the QR code, check it out. We'll be here in the red shoes. You can't miss us. And I appreciate it. Bye, everyone.
Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to our next program on the Cultivation Stage today. I'm delighted to be joined on stage with the leaders of the 4 most prominent youth agricultural organizations. Up today with me, 4-H, FFA, AFA, and Manners. We're here to have an insightful conversation about what's on the horizon for the next generation of leaders in agriculture. My name is Margie Wolf. I'm the Vice President of Leadership, Education, and Engagement at American Farm Bureau, and I'm delighted to chat with these wonderful leaders about their organizations and what insight they can share with us about today's youth, today's agricultural leaders. So I'll start by asking each of you to introduce yourselves. So we're curious to know a little bit about your organization, your role in the organization, and a little bit about your journey that led you to sit in the seat you're sitting in now. And to get us started on our topic, one adjective that you feel helps describe today's youth. So would you get us started?
Sure. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Mark Stewart. I serve as the President and CEO of Agriculture Future of America. We are the youngest of the youth organizations, celebrating our 27th anniversary most recently. We're on a mission to develop transformational leaders. Our primary audience is college students and young professionals, and we really do our work through dynamic educational experiences and enhanced networking experiences all over the country with students. What's unique about our organization is that we do not have a membership. Students engage with us through a competitive process, and we do one of three things. We help with their soft skill competencies, we help them explore career paths, and we help them build a rich and really dynamic network, a network that we believe is an asset to them as they go through their careers. So that's AFA in a nutshell without getting into the weeds. I serve as our president and CEO. I was hired primarily in a development role. We do have strong partnerships throughout the industry because our partnerships allow us to do what we do, and then we engage professionals to show up and help network with college students, which is kind of the secret sauce to our experiences. So I started in that role, still do that very much today. I would say what prepared me, I'm actually a generation removed, so I'm guessing some of you can relate. My parents had a farm, but before I knew it, I married well. My predecessor said I married a farm girl from Nebraska, so that made me qualified. But that's where I got all my experience. And so, but I do have a passion for developing people, helping them find their path, something that they're passionate about and they can be successful in. And some of the most crucial experiences that I had were sports. I was part of some really successful teams all the way through college, and have seen what a powerful community of people coming together for a common cause could do to affect positive change. And so I see a lot of parallels in what we do at AFA to bring people together, get them rallied around a common cause, give them the skills and the network they need to make a positive difference, send them back out and let them do it. So anyways, it's a wonderful organization and a pleasure to be a part of.
And what's your one adjective
to describe? So I said I did sports in college. I shouldn't say I was a dumb jock. I'll use a word. I don't know if it's an adjective or a noun. It depends on how you use it. Outliers is what comes to mind. I read the book by Malcolm Gladwell about outliers and the appreciation of what people go through that make them successful leaders. And I would say that young people today are outliers. And however we can tap into the experiences that they've had, recognize the uniqueness for what they all are, will help them make a profound difference in the industry.
Great, thank you. Jill, how about you? A little bit about yourself, 4-H, and your adjective.
Great, thank you, Margie. So 4-H is America's largest youth development organization. It is the program of our nation's cooperative extension system and delivered by the land-grant universities to every single county in America. We serve young people as early as age 5 all the way through 18, and also have a collegiate 4-H program as well. 4-H is intended for young people to learn hands-on, real-world skills. It allows them to find their spark in what interests them and be aligned with positive mentors who can help engage them and maintain their leadership skills on a pathway to college or career. I actually grew up in 4-H. I'm new in the president and CEO role, but not new to 4-H. I'm a 4th generation 4-H'er from Maryland's rural Eastern Shore, where I grew up on a dairy farm. And in that very small community, there was only 4-H and FFA. There were no other large youth development organizations, and so it really provided me opportunities for leadership in my community, but also beyond my community, in my state and across the nation. And I feel a tremendous responsibility today as president and CEO to make sure we bridge to the future so that all young people have access to this amazing program that is located in every single county. I think my adjective for today's young people is dynamic. They are experiencing dynamic change that's happening in the world around them. They are creating change. They are change leaders, and they are thinking and working and approaching this world in a very different way than I did and many of us did. And I see great opportunity in that. I think they're leaders today, not just at some point in the future. And I feel very hopeful for our future when I'm with our 4-H'ers.
Wonderful, thank you. Darius. Sure.
Yes, so my name is Dr. Darius Burnett. I'm a meat scientist and muscle biologist by training, and also serve as the National Manners President. Manners is a 40-year-old organization, started on the campus of Michigan State University back in 1984. And since then, we've experienced tremendous growth. We have earned our place as a result of deliberate work day in and day out as the premier organization for recruitment, retention, and cultivation of diverse talent to supply the ag, natural resources, and related science space. And so the Manners organization, since its inception, has committed itself to making sure access and opportunities are equitably distributed and making sure that students who may not, or individuals who may not come from an agricultural background have the opportunity to contribute to the future of agriculture. And so I am one of those students who did not come from a traditional agricultural background. I came from Denver, Colorado. And so I told the story before, but I grew up wanting to be the crocodile hunter. And so I knew I wanted to work with animals. I just didn't know that I was going to be working with cows and stuff. And so I got a scholarship to Tuskegee University, and they told me to pick a major, and it said animal science, and I thought that that was my ticket to become the crocodile hunter. But little did I know I was going to be working with cows and pigs and goats. And so I was ready to change my major to wildlife biology or some other major, but I had a professor who decided that our first activity in our intro to animal science class was to castrate goats. And so I don't know what it is about castrating goats that fascinated me, but instead of just getting 1 degree in animal science, I got 3 degrees in animal science. So it was just fascinating to me. And so along each one of those degrees, though, Manners played an influential role. So I am a product of the Manners pipeline, and my only regret is that I didn't start Manners earlier. So Manners actually has a pre-collegiate version called Junior Manners, and that starts with students as early as 6th grade. And so those students, again, we feel that they're the most impressionable at that point. That's when they're making decisions about what they want to be when they grow up, like I was, wanting to be the crocodile hunter. And so if we can reach them early and often, and then we support them into their collegiate journey. And Manners, what's unique about us is we don't stop once you graduate. We realize that the struggle doesn't stop once you walk across the stage and get your diploma. And so we actually continue to cultivate talent beyond graduation. And we have some members who have been founding members of the organization who will be retiring this year. And so we really are a life cycle organization, and we're not just a professional development organization, but as our COO, Miss Ebony Weber, says, we're also a workforce development organization. And so we take pride in that. We are preparing students to be immediately impactful upon graduation so that they can change the face of agriculture.
And what's your adjective?
Oh, my adjective is eccentric. And so kind of building on what we talked about, or what has been said before, we had outliers, we had dynamic, and I would say eccentric. So in the fact that they are non-traditional, they may not be the 30-year employee that stays at one organization for 30 years, but they want to be impactful, immediately impactful. They have a different idea of what a work day looks like. And so I would say, and we'll talk about this later, but I would say that the student of today is very eccentric.
Thanks. Scott.
Thank you, Margie. Scott Stump, CEO of National FFA and the National FFA Foundation. Pleasure to be with you, and thank you for taking some time to sit and listen and rest from walking around the expo and actually get your energy level back up. And our goal is to pour passion and energy into you because the students that we work with give it to us every day, and it's the best part of the work that we do. So FFA, if you're not familiar with it, National Student Organization for students 5th grade, and for those of you that might not remember that we were in middle school, for many years we were in 7th and 8th grade. This past fall, with the help of our delegates and National Convention, voted a year ago to move down as early as 5th grade in alignment with the federal law that provides funding for career and technical education. So this fall we're starting as early as 5th grade to expose students to the wonderful array of careers and opportunities that exist within agriculture, from production on the farm to providing the inputs to those producers, from carrying that product and adding value to it all the way along that food value chain. We believe that there's a place for our students and a need. I was with the Farm Foundation here recently at an event, and we were talking about the need for employees. And across all jobs in the United States, we're 10 million short, as of last fall's JOLTS report, of having enough people to fill any job: IT, health, engineering, agriculture. The problem is right now, we as an entity in the industry of agriculture are in a war for talent. And so as we look at it within the FFA lens, with our, and I'll give you a spoiler alert, our one board member a few years ago decided that we needed to really push to have 1 million members by our 100th anniversary, which will be in 2028. Sad news is, we're going to hit that number before 2028. It'll be sometime this next spring. We will pass that 1 million student mark of between 5th graders and 12th grade and high school. How do we keep them in the industry. And that's where we've been looking at partnerships between the secondary and the post-secondary and along that continuum to say, how do we do it better to make sure that that talent is kept online for this industry that we so value and love. Our mission is very simple. We develop potential for career leadership, personal growth, and career success. Yeah, so I think that kind of hits it. The side note, and the other piece is that we're school-based. So for those of you that did not know, FFA chapters only exist where there is a school teacher that's been hired by the school district to offer coursework either at the middle school or high school level, and then that's how the students gain access to FFA. But FFA, according to our federal charter, is intra-curricular. So at the same time students are getting technical skills in agriculture, they are also getting the leadership, personal growth, and career success skills that make them so valuable to employers at the end of the day. And my one word, and we've actually been doing some interesting research in this space, my one word is passionate. The generation that's coming, Gen Z and Gen Alpha, they are purpose-driven like none other that we've seen. They want to solve problems, and they want to solve big problems, and they want to do it right now.
Wonderful. So you've given us some great adjectives to get us started thinking. So share us with us, from your vantage point, what do you think are the biggest concerns right now for the youth that you work with? Mark, did you want to start us off?
Yeah, so I'll talk about some tactical things, and then I'll talk about it from like the personal side. Young people today, and again, we're primarily working with college students, so that's primarily Gen Z right now, interested in the environment in ways that maybe students before them never had been. They are digital natives. They're the first generation that were born into technology. And so, they have interest and concern about how that plays out in their future. And so, how as parents, employers, how do we embrace the things that they're concerned about to engage them in the conversation? Some of their concerns around the transition into employment are, we talked about finding values and connection in their values. We've done some work with an agency out of Kansas City called Barkley that does a lot of generational research, and it's research on marketing to generations. And so one of the unique things about Gen Z is they don't care about the institution, the name, the brand, as much as ever before. What they care about is aligning on values. And so some of their concerns as they enter the workforce is, where can I go where I can make a difference, where I'll have a seat at the table and be engaged in the conversation and be seen as a valuable contributor and align on those values. And so, again, I think our opportunity is to understand and appreciate the difference of this generation in a way that can pull them into solving problems and issues, because they see a lot of challenges before us and they want to be involved in the solutions.
Mm-hmm. How about the rest of you? Are those common things that you're seeing, or maybe something different from your vantage points?
I think the statistic that comes to mind is that 60% of Gen Zers want to actually start their own businesses. They want to be entrepreneurs. They're not looking to go work in a traditional work setting. They are seeing big legacy brands actually dissolve, and they want to be part of doing something new, starting something new. So I think we have to also think about, what does that mean for our talent pipeline?
I would just add that they're less prone to profiteering. They're less prone to just the bottom line in terms of dollars. Again, to Mark's point, they really want things that they're doing to be impactful and to align with their values. And so it's not enough to offer them a salary, a competitive salary, but you have to offer them a competitive environment where they can be impactful. And so less and less are you able to attract them with dollars, and you have to meet them where they're at and attract them with values that align with theirs.
Mm-hmm. So let me then ask the logical next question, which is, how have your organizations adapted to those needs and to those changing consumers that you have? So what have you learned and how have you adapted?
Well, one of the things that we do at Manners is our student officers are the lifeblood of our organization. They represent the student body, and so they are involved and they are decision makers as part of what happens at the national level. And so as a result of that, we bring in their perspective. And so as opposed to preaching to them or telling them what we are going to do as an organization, they are involved in actually shaping the direction of the organization, both in terms of tasks and tactics. And so by allowing them to have that initial contribution, they buy into the long-term growth and organizational goals. And so again, having them at the table as opposed to dictating to them what we're going to do as an organization has allowed for much more buy-in and accommodates their interest in being impactful immediately.
Great way to stay relevant, right? To be constantly adapting. Others want to chime in?
I would add to much the same. We've got 50 student leaders all across the campus engaged in many of the same ways. So there's some interesting responses to that question post-COVID. First of all, I don't know if we know young people today that are in college or before, but attention spans are short. So we have had to adapt what we do in terms of programmatic content to make it short form, energetic, relevant to them. Even though we know the skills that they need to hone for their career, they have to see why it's relevant to them for now. So a lot of that has changed how we deliver content and engagement with young people. For us that are event-based, we are primarily event-based. We've had to rethink the way that we run an application process through the students, which is the questions we ask. We room students together post-COVID. That has been interesting. You know, there are a lot of demographic changes with young people today. We had never asked questions about sexual orientation or background or things of that nature. So it challenged us to rethink the way we do event-based programming in a way that, one, makes them feel like they can belong even when they're just applying, to the way we conduct and carry out programs so that they feel welcome, that this is an industry that's a place for them. And then all the way to the way we deliver the content. Make it short form, make it energetic, make it relevant, help them see the relevancy to them today, and know that it's going to impact them in the future. So those would be a few other things that I would add.
How about at FFA, Scott? What kind of adaptations have you made to meet these changing needs of your audience?
Yeah, so as a part of expanding on the event-based experiences, one of them was FFA Live, that during convention last year, we intentionally, instead of just, and we have a wonderful partner with RFD TV that allows it to stream all of the convention sessions, but for the students wanting, they consume content in such different ways. So packaging things down, creating stories that were bite-sized, that were much shorter than our old ways of doing things, and giving them a chance to be inspired in the moment, and being able to pick and choose what was interesting to them, as opposed to saying, you must be interested in this.
So, Mark, you mentioned pandemic. So all of society has seen a lot of changes and reactions to the pandemic. So Jill, what have you seen from your vantage point? How did the pandemic affect young people?
Yeah, so the data is really sobering. Gen Z is the largest generation. 86 million young people ages 6 to 25 is Gen Z. And after the pandemic, reading and math scores decreased for the first time in 50 years in our country. 1 in 5 Gen Zers are facing mental health challenges. It is a different world for them. They are so connected digitally, but they're so isolated and disconnected from human to human or with their community because everything is behind a device. And it's creating a loneliness and an isolation that is a significant risk to young people. So we are also adapting and doing things like working with Cooperative Extension to create an e-learning platform called Clover that can connect people where they are. And it can be a complement to in-person. So they can pursue different pathways. Not everyone is going to pursue a 4-year degree, but we need to make sure that our young people have pathways to enroll, enlist, be employed, and we're offering credentials and certificates, a lot of different ways to engage young people where they are. But it is so vitally important that we also connect them to their in-person 4-H program, to have that human contact, to have that ability to give back and engage in their community. And when that happens, we see their purpose just go off the charts, or their hope for the future, both of which we've just gotten back in some research studies that give us a lot of promise. So we're learning as young people are changing and facing new challenges.
Other observations about the changes in effect?
Yeah, so the post-COVID, again, where we're at now, so much of what we do within FFA is experience-based. I mean, we, yes, talk about how to give a prepared public speech. We talk about parliamentary procedure, but more importantly, we make students do that. Well, we went through a period where there was difficulty doing that in person, getting the feedback that a student needed to grow. Our state officers being out in states and classrooms, doing workshops over and over again for other students, we're working back from that. The other piece I would say is that we also require every student to have an outside of school either work experience or starting their own business. As Joe was saying, we need to ramp up and be ready for all of the rest of them that are going to be having those businesses. But I'll tell you, a lot of the workplaces have not fully brought back the students after COVID because they found either automations or other ways to do that business. And so as employers in communities, one of the things that I would ask you to do and implore you to do is open up your place of business to students. How are we going to prep them in what it means to work and acclimate them what it means to have a job unless we as the employers today are willing to allow that to happen? And I do think that's one of the other pieces that we'll need to move back towards. And to all of you, I so apologize for this. I wanted to be here, but I do have a flight at 3:20 that I'm going to work very hard to meet because we have 300 state leaders that are coming in for the Team Ag Ed in service, and I want to make sure that I'm there so they don't talk bad about me, because not that they would. But if you have more questions, Emma, if you would, just stand up and wave. Emma's in booth 906. Emma Mendez from our alumni team, and so we'll have more information about FFA there, but thank you for allowing me to be a part of
Thanks
this
so much.
conversation.
Thanks so much.
Best to all of you. Thanks, Scott.
So, one other aspect, you've talked about values and things. One other thing that I think will really be shifting, according to research, Pew Research, is that one of the core characteristics of Gen Z is racial diversity. So this generation is the last generation that will be predominantly white. So I'm curious, how do you think that diversity will benefit agriculture? How will it benefit organizations like all of ours? And on the flip side, what are the challenges that we're going to grapple with as we deal with that changing demographic? Darius, it seems like you're a logical start for this one.
Oh, absolutely. So when we talk about diversity, and we actually Manners just held a summer webinar series, and one of our webinars titles was, is diversity a dirty word, or has it become a dirty word? Mm-hmm. And so one of the things that we've seen in terms of some of the DEI legislation may fly in the face of the values of the students that we are raising these days, because the students embrace diversity. They understand that their classmates and their peers may look different than them, but they share the same values, they share the same interests, and things like that. And so it may be a high time for some of us, in the previous generations to get out of the way and allow these students to embrace the diversity that is impending. To your point, it's something that we're not going to put that toothpaste back in the tube. And so at this point, it's very incumbent on us to embrace the change that is occurring. And so you talk about how will that benefit agriculture. One of the things when I talk about diversity, I'm not specifically talking about when you talk about ethnic diversity, for example. But when I think about diversity, I think about intellectual diversity. And so not attacking the same problems over and over with the same solutions that we had several years ago, right? And so as we emerge, we get into the place of digital agriculture and all these other fields, we're going to need some intellectual diversity for folks to think, how do we tackle these wicked challenges that we're faced with? And so when you talk about how does it benefit agriculture, it can only benefit agriculture because we're bringing in new talent, new ideas, new diversity in terms of thought, geographics, demographics, and whatnot. And so to me, I think diversity is the future, and we can't necessarily shy away from that despite what we see sometimes on the legislative levels.
Thanks. So how about the rest of you? What opportunities for agriculture for your organizations, and then what challenges do you see?
Well, I'll add, I mean, Darius' comment about it being a dirty word really resonates. It's kind of interesting. I mean, what we're ultimately talking about is difference. And, there's all sorts of data that suggests that differing perspectives and intellectual difference and everything else is good for business. You can find all sorts of research. But for some reason, we tend to want to stick with what we know or who we know and who those that we're most comfortable with, instead of embracing difference and diversity. And so I think that's the challenge upon us. Young people expect it. They've grown up with it. They're going to continue to expect it. I hope that they don't fall into the same trap of not embracing and seeking diversity. But I think that's the challenge before us, because again, all the statistics will tell us it's good for business, it's good for the bottom line, and at the end of the day, it's just about creating spaces and places where those that are involved can value differing perspectives. And boy, wouldn't it be awesome? Our world would be in a lot better place if we had an appreciation for difference. An appreciation for the fact that we don't see eye to eye on politics or religion or whatever else, and that's okay. Like, we can agree to disagree, and we can move things along. Like, wouldn't it be nice? And so I think at the end of the day, especially with you serving organizations, I believe that you want to affect change, you start when they're young. If we can start to empower these young people to embrace difference in a way that allows them to create influence when they get into the industry, if we create the snowball, we'll have a lot of positive impact as a result. So just some 2 cents.
In 4-H, we have a goal to grow from 6 million to 10 million young people that reflect the diversity of this nation. And as I think about agriculture, it is one of the most diverse industries in terms of commodities, the weather, the equipment, the types of farming. There is tremendous diversity in agriculture. As I think about the end users of agriculture, it is our diverse country. So we need to be intentional about a diverse talent pipeline for agriculture that connects both of those. And we are behind that 100%. We want all young people to see a place for themselves in 4-H and to benefit from the amazing organization that we have.
So some of you may have been with us at the leadership lunch, and President Duvall talked about the importance of the leadership pipeline in agriculture, and specifically for Farm Bureau, we're concerned about production agriculture too. So we all know that the average age of farmers continues to increase. Getting young people involved in production agriculture is sometimes a challenge. So Darius, I know you have a passion for this, so talk to me a little bit about how Manners is helping expose students to production agriculture.
Yeah, so we've had to be very creative and innovative in our approach, but that is our mandate, is to make sure that our students have access and opportunity when it comes to exposure to production agriculture. And so whether that means taking students to the farm or bringing the farm to the students, we got to do a little bit of both. It's a both-and proposition. And so in terms of creative ways to do that, there's container farms, there's farming internships, co-ops and whatnot. But again, I believe that our students have to get onto the farm, or the farm has to be brought to them in order for them to really innovate and operate the farms of the future. We can't expect them to innovate and operate those farms having never been on a farm, right? Or understanding what traditional agriculture looks like, we can't understand how to move that forward. And so Manners has been very deliberate about making sure that students have those opportunities. We work with the Atlanta Urban Farm. We have Footprint Farms in Mississippi. And so all of these different ways that we can try to involve students in agriculture early and often. We think that that is one of the ways that we can kind of change the perception about agriculture, because many in the minority community often have a negative connotation when it comes to agriculture. And so exposing them to both the benefits and challenges and opportunities in agriculture just kind of sparks their passion for making the impact. And they say, you know what, I may not have grown up on a farm, but I do like to fly drones, or I like to do video gaming or digital agriculture or whatever. I just finished reading a letter of recommendation for a student, or an essay for a student who wants to get in digital agriculture, right? And so those are the ways that they are seeing opportunities for themselves simply by being exposed to agriculture and exposed to the farm.
Wonderful. So talk to us a little bit about how you think the next generation of leaders will change the way we all live and work in the future.
I'll get it started. So I think one of the ways they'll challenge us is they want to be engaged in meaningful work right away. And we're going to see that as, hang on, you got to pay your dues, and what you're going to do is end up running them out of the business. So they're going to challenge us to be engaged in meaningful work right out of the gate. They want to feel supported in their journey, whatever that may be. They want to have opportunities to learn and grow and develop, and so workplaces that don't provide a space for that are probably going to miss out on them. and having a seat at the table, having a voice, being involved in the discussion. I mean, all of those things are ways that they're going to challenge us to work-life balance, so that would be another thing. And again, all of those things, especially if you're talking about, we've got 5 generations in the workforce, some of us are going to have to change our perceptions about how we come to work, whether or not you have to pay your dues to get engaged in meaningful conversations, what ambition really looks like and how you can embrace it, the ways that you're going to support young talent in their growth and development. I think those would be a few categories that, there's a level of ambition that young people are coming into the workforce with that may challenge some of us to think differently.
So by 2030, 80% of the jobs that will exist then have not yet been invented. Think about that. 6 years from now, all new different job skills are going to be vital to this economy. Gen Z has an adaptability to technology, to change. They embrace change, they embrace challenges. They're lifelong learners. We need them. They are vital to our future. And so I think embracing them now, getting them excited about what's happening, what the new frontiers in agriculture are essential to hooking them so we can keep them in the industry and helping to evolve where we're headed.
And I would just add that when we think about farming of the future, our current students and future farmers are going to demand accountability. They're going to demand that the practices that we employ are sustainable. They're going to, again, put that over profitability. They're going to make sure that, again, that this farm and this land exists for the next generation. And so it's not going to always be about the bottom line. You're not going to always convince them unless you can make that social argument, that the environmental argument, that these patterns and practices are sustainable. And the other thing you mentioned about 80% of the jobs in 10 years not existing yet, we also know that with the advent of AI, that 40% of the current jobs will no longer exist, right? And so with both of those statistics in play, we know that there's going to be a whole new swath of jobs and a whole new swath. I mean, students are combining careers. They're saying, I want to do this and this, right? Or I'm going to take my own path. It's not just the traditional linear path to these careers that they're taking. And so that's going to require us to adapt as well. And that may require, some employers supporting further education or understanding that that student has a commitment to advanced degrees and things like that, maybe while also working full time. And so just as Mark mentioned, adaptability in the workplace and understanding the expectations of the employer and the employee and trying to figure out how those things meet.
So we've touched on this a little bit, but the whole notion of technology and the fact that this generation are the first digital natives and that they're really, wholly in the digital era. So how has that fact and that need influenced the way you communicate with this group? I know we've touched on it a little bit, but I think Farm Bureau is always struggling with communication across all the generations. So what lessons have you learned about communicating with this group?
I think it's hard, right? Because they are receiving so much content every second of the day. On their phones, you think of all the different apps they have that are pumping content into them. True, false, they have to decipher it all, and how do you break through the noise to reach them? And I think Dara said earlier, the importance of engaging young people and helping us solve some of those challenges, helping them to determine what are the best ways of communication. We know digital is very important for that. Shorter content pieces, shorter curriculum pieces, things that they can try and test and learn have been essential, but it is hard to break through the noise, and so we want to engage them in being communicators, so it's a peer-to-peer communication as well.
It's definitely how you package the content. Pre-iPhone, so pre-2008, there was a study done, and it said the average American's attention span was about 14 seconds. And so 2008 comes, here comes the iPhone. They did a subsequent follow-up study in about 2015 or so, and they said that the American attention span had gone down to 6 seconds, right? So from 14 seconds to 6 seconds, and by comparison, a goldfish's attention span is 8 seconds. And so you can actually interest a goldfish just putting your finger around the bowl for 8 seconds longer than you can actually captivate the average American. And so how you deliver that content to them, especially the younger generation, and as you mentioned, they're getting hit with a fire hose of information, and it's their job to decipher what's real, what's not, what's truth and what's not. And they also we have to kind of prevent the information silos and confirmation bias and all those other things that kind of reinforce some of the things that are divisive. And so I think how you package the information and the platforms that you deliver it on, and then also giving them opportunities or ways to verify and validate information. And so multi-sourcing and things like that are ways that we have to try to embrace.
I just want to add one thing. How many of you have a Stanley Cup? How many of you have kids that have Stanley Cups? So I saw more hands go up. That's an example of influence. And so, just to add on to this communication piece, it could be peer-to-peer, or it could be somebody that they don't even know. My kids are getting influenced by people that we don't know, but they have a following and they have influence, and that can be good or bad. But Stanley Cups are a perfect example of it because they've been around for decades, I think. And now every one of my kids has one, I'm ashamed to say, but, or maybe not, I don't know. They do, they hold up well. But anyways, it kind of comes back to, who's communicating with them and what influence they have on young people today.
Mm-hmm. So we're almost out of time, so I have one final question that I'd love for you all to respond to, and that is, what can the rest of us learn from the generation of students that you're spending time with, that you're working with? Voluntary order, in classic Farm Bureau style, voluntary order.
Well, again, this is coming from something, I think we've already learned, and Darius touched on it earlier. Value the voice of young people. Yeah. Don't discredit them because they're young, they're inexperienced, they maybe lack enough education in our eyes. I think if that's the one thing that we can learn and challenge our perspective on, you'd be surprised what you can learn from young people and how it would engage them in their involvement with you and making a positive difference and all the things.
I would build on that. It is unbelievable what young people will come up with, the ideas, if you ask and if you listen and generally want to learn from them. Their perspectives are unique and they want to contribute. They're looking for ways to have purpose and give back. So I would ask that you think about mentoring a young person. How can you be a good listener, a good support system? They need it outside of their core family to thrive.
And I guess I would just end, we describe this generation as, I believe we described them as dynamic. I call them eccentric outliers. So dynamic eccentric outliers is what we're dealing with, right? And so I would say in that regard, we got to throw out the playbook, right? We got to basically say the old playbook isn't working anymore because we're dealing with dynamic eccentric outliers. And so each and every one of those students is going to chart their own course. And to Jill's point, don't discount their advice, don't discount their contributions. One, that's going to be how you get them to buy in, but two, again, I talked about that intellectual diversity, and a lot of times we're thinking over and over how we're going to solve the same problem or new problem with old solutions, and they may come in with a new solution that we never thought of. And so again, value their contributions, and I think we'll go further.
Wonderful, thank you. In my job, I have the opportunity to work with a lot of state and county farm bureaus, and a universal concern that I hear all across the country is the need and the importance of engaging young people. So I hope that you have appreciated, as I have, the insight of these leaders who are working with today's youth, our future members, our current members, and thank you all so much for coming and sharing your insights. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
I'm here on behalf of the American Farm Bureau Federation Farm State of Mind Sounding Board. When I started working in the ag mental health space about 5 years ago, mental health was a little bit of a dirty word of sorts. We were afraid, I think, to taint that romantic image of our perfect country life. Today, though, we're no longer afraid. We're no longer afraid to admit that farming can be both heartwarming and heartbreaking, and that it takes strength to put in the long hours and make the tough decisions, and that it also takes strength to reach out for help when enough is enough. That's why today, President Duvall proudly announced our newest tool, our newest brand spanking new shiny tool for our toolbox, Togetherall. It's a peer-to-peer, farmer-to-rancher support network. And here today to talk a little bit about Togetherall is Mr. Todd Price of Farm Foundation.
Thank you. Good afternoon. It is a pleasure to be here today to talk to you about a subject that's very near to my heart, and that is the wellness of farm families. I find it fascinating what memories stick with us from our childhood. I grew up on a farm in Iowa, and I can remember the summer of 1988 vividly. For a kid, it was a typical summer. There was no school, baseball, lots of farm chores, and that race to get all your 4-H projects done before the fair. For our farming community, though, it was a very unusual year. We faced the driest April to August on record. Then, if that wasn't enough, it was also the second hottest summer on record. The drought stress weighed on our entire community. You could see it on people's faces. It was what everybody talked about. Two memories in particular stand out from that time. The first one happened right before the county fair. It was in July, and finally a storm came through. And it was one of those really good ones that a farmer can appreciate. It wasn't a gully wash, it was a nice soaking rain. And my dad was a man who did not show his emotions very often, but he went outside and he stood in that rain and let it wash over him. And it was a very powerful moment. I think all that stress kind of relieved, it kind of went with it, but I had never seen anything like that. A different memory from that same summer, though, was surrounded by hushed whispers. A neighbor who was overwhelmed by the drought, by the heat, by a stack of unpaid bills, had an accident in his barn, or at least that's what they told us it was. This tragedy is a stark reminder of the toll that farmers sometimes face, and all too often, they do it in silence. The discussions around mental and family health have changed a lot since then, but still too many people feel that they need to do this on their own. Or if they are trying to find help for themselves or their families, they don't know where to turn to. Well, that's not the way it's going to be anymore. It is my pleasure to again talk about a new program, a new path to supporting mental, financial, and physical health for a farm family. The services offered through the Farm Family Wellness Alliance are available to members of farm families 16 years and older. The service starts with Togetherall. This is an online, safe, peer-to-peer support community. Using an anonymous profile, members can access a global network of peers so that they can safeguard and in a safe way talk about their feelings. And it's overseen by licensed clinicians so that that community is always available. In addition to Togetherall's global community, farmers will also have access to a agricultural industry subgroup where farmers can talk to each other. And this is monitored and one-on-one counseling opportunities through our partnership with Personal Assistance Services. The Farm Family Wellness Alliance is made possible through a coalition of partners that include American Farm Bureau, Farm Credit, CoBank, Iowa Farm Bureau, Farm Credit, Land O'Lakes, CHS, the National Farmers Union, 4-H, FFA, AFA, Togetherall, and PASS. Services make this coalition, they underwrite all of the services that are in it and make it free for farm families. I'd like to take you a second to show you what that website looks like. So up on the screen, it shows you how easy it is to get into. This is the Togetherall website, and you can access it through your hand device, your computer, your iPad. All you have to do is go to togetherall.com. And once you get there, there's a button for join. Push that to join, and then they say to create an account, what you need to do is then enter Farm Family Wellness Alliance. They'll ask you a few questions, help create that profile. One of the fun things is they actually create your username for you. No pressure. It's very easy and safe to do. And then that takes you straight to your feed. So the feed is, remember, this is an online peer-to-peer community. So the feed is people talking to each other. And it's also moderated by professional clinicians. In the toolbar across the top, you'll see different icons. I just clicked the community one, so it's customized. You can actually pick areas that you would be more interested in or you'd like to learn more about. So you could click loneliness, PTSD, relationships, those kinds of things, and then that will help populate your thread. There's a catalog of courses that you can also take from managing anger and improving your sleep, all kinds of really good classes that you can take to do that. There are resources you can use from journaling and goal setting. And again, there's the wall guide, which is the middle icon, so you always have a professional looking after you. The Togetherall page is neat because it has, if you are artistic, or lots of ways to express yourself. These are called bricks. And so while I'm not an artist, I can appreciate people who, that's the way they express themselves. So here we have an example of some of the bricks, and then behind that would be the thread that you could interact with. I had said earlier that there is an ag industry subgroup. When you join the Togetherall site by using Farm Family Wellness Alliance, they will ask you if you would like to join the group. And this is where then you get the chance to talk with other farmers and other farm families in a ag industry subgroup. And this is populated, so the more farmers we have, the more we'll be able to have interactions going on with that. As you can see, it's really easy to enroll. It's quick, it's safe, it's a judgment-free zone, and it lets you talk about things that you may not be comfortable talking to people at home about. Being 24 hours a day, it can fit in a farmer's busy schedule, and it's free to use. And I want to emphasize that this is not a crisis line. Those already exist, and they are of critical importance, but that is not what this is. The service is offered through the Farm Family Wellness Alliance, aimed to revolutionize access to farm family mental health and well-being services. I have a quick video I'd like to show you. It's always good when it works. So we encourage you to stop by our booth right over here, learn about the Farm Family Wellness Alliance. We are handing out air fresheners. They have the website. Hang these in your tractor, hang these in your truck. I think it's kind of like when Marlo Thomas talks about St. Jude and says, give thanks for the healthy kids in your life and consider helping others. Take this home to your communities. Share it with your neighbors. Share it with your family. Anybody you think is in need, share it with them. Thank you very much. We do have the option, if anybody would have any questions, we have our partners here to answer any of those questions from the crowd if we have any.
Hey Todd, I'd just like to first of all congratulate you, job well done.
Thank you.
And secondly, what should a county farm bureau and county farm bureau leaders be doing to advance the program and make it known to members?
All right. Do you want to answer that?
Thank you for that question. You know, first of all, I want all County Farm Bureau members here to be aware that American Farm Bureau will be distributing resources to state farm bureaus to help promote the resources within your communities. So then the state farm bureaus can disseminate that to the county farm bureaus and so forth. So please be on the lookout for resources coming from your state farm bureau. We have digital assets, so social media communications that will be going out to state farm bureaus and that you can cross share on social media. But also, and probably more importantly to your point, is some general talking points and FAQs and URLs, you know, like the QR codes and the things that you can put if you're having a meeting that you can pass a paper around the table. If you're doing a presentation or you have some sort of, you know, PowerPoint up at some point, you can put a slide in your PowerPoint so that folks can scan it and they can connect with the Togetherall resource. So, and we need everyone here today to be committed to pursuing that and making it happen so that when you go back to your county farm bureau, that you're the squeaky wheel. You need to be the one that says, hey, have we gotten this stuff yet? Hey, can we put this on the program for our next meeting? Hey, we have somebody giving a presentation. Can we add a slide deck about this? So we encourage all of you to be the squeaky wheel. Make sure that even though it's new and they're not familiar with it, that it gets in front of as many farm families as possible all across this country.
I'm extremely excited about this because as I'm watching it, I'm thinking of, I want to get this to a particular group of dairy moms that I belong with. Can you give me an example of what the family, session would look like?
What she's asking is, anyone who's 16 years or older is able to access this platform. So you can go on there as a 16-year-old even, and in Togetherall be able to access that farming industry page and conversation. I don't know if you can speak any more on the past services though, when there are counseling and financial counseling services available for that as well. So I'm not sure if you want to add anything to that.
If there were a family counseling session that they ended up getting referred to through Togetherall to the past services, which would be the individual or family counseling services, then that would be something that those providers that are working with that individual would determine what that would look like and how that family would come together for services. And there are also elder care, I think you mentioned consultants, and things if you're taking care of someone, a family member who's elderly and it's causing a lot of stress and anxiety or financial trouble in your home, that's another service. So there are various services that on an as-needed basis that you can be referred to as well. And I wanted to go back to the County Farm Bureau thing. In this very moment in Farm Bureau, the absolute easiest thing to do is to tell people to visit farmstateofmind.org. Tell people to visit farmstateofmind.org. And all of you can access Togetherall straight from that QR code right there. And if you go to farmstateofmind.org, you'll see all of the resources through AFBF's mental health campaign, including a link to the Togetherall services. Okay, so you can put that up on a slide tomorrow if you want, or you can put it on an agenda tomorrow. You don't have to wait on anybody to send it to you. You can do your own social media post and put farmstateofmind.org. Okay, thanks guys.
Hello. Farm Family Wellness Alliance. I struggled with that when I logged on too. I was like, what am I supposed to put for the group? Farm Family Wellness Alliance. And that's where, yep, that is the group that you're going to enter. That'll help get you rolling. County Farm Bureaus, I know there's a lot of annual meetings coming up. That is one of the best ways. I will tell you as a mental health presenter, the best ways to get people in your seats for mental health conversations is when they're already in them. So just pop that information out there at your annual meetings coming up. Any other questions? Or oh, we're good. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Isabella Chisholm, and I serve as chair of the American Farm Bureau Women's Leadership Committee. On behalf of the committee, I would like to formally welcome all of you to the Cultivation Center Stage. We have a special panel and a great discussion ahead for you today, discussing growing together. I'm joined by Dave Salmonson, Senior Director of Government Affairs at American Farm Bureau, Christine McKee, to my immediate left, Agriculture Counsel with the Embassy of Canada, and Brenda Martinez, Agricultural Officer with the Embassy of Mexico. We're so thankful for each of you to be joining us today, and I look forward to our discussion. But I do want to take a moment to give you some information about the Women's Leadership Committee and the program itself, as well as the role that we play with Farm Bureau advocacy. At the heart of women's leadership programs is our mission. The Women's Leadership Committee engages women by offering opportunities to develop communication and leadership skills, empowering them as strong, effective leaders in agriculture. We work toward this mission with our program of work and events we host for our Farm Bureau women. The American Farm Bureau Women's Leadership Committee hosts events such as Women's Communication Boot Camp and ACE Summit. Now, Women's Communication Boot Camp is an intensive training for any female Farm Bureau member interested in building skills needed to communicate about agriculture. This is communication with media, presentations, as well as advocacy training. We also host the ACE Summit. ACE is an acronym standing for Advocate, Cultivate, and Empower. This two-day event is held every other year in the even years. It brings together our Farm Bureau women for networking, leadership development, outreach, and advocacy training. The next ACE Summit is this year, June 3rd through the 5th, 2024 in Washington, D.C. These events equip our women members to not only advocate at the national level, but at the local level as well. We know that members leave our events with more confidence and knowledge, and they're ready to advocate for agriculture in their county, their state, and with American Farm Bureau. Thank you all for indulging me, those few moments for a commercial. I'm looking forward to all of this discussion, and I'm ready just to get started. So in this ever-changing world, it's becoming increasingly important to collaborate with other nations to ensure the world has enough food, fiber, and fuel. We're here today to discuss the importance of collaboration, working together through USMCA and international trade. So my first question is, tell us a little about yourself and your day-to-day duties as an ag attaché. And I'm going to start with Christine, and then we'll move to Brenda next.
Okay. First of all, thank you so much for this opportunity. It's a pleasure to be here. I've been coming to the Farm Bureau for a number of years now, since I think my first one was Seattle in maybe 2008.
Oh.
And this will actually be my last Farm Bureau as I'm moving on from Washington, D.C., which is where I'm posted at the moment. I'm in my 6th year of my 4-year posting, so either they've forgotten about me or I'm doing something right because it's been extended a couple of years. So it's been a pleasure to be in Washington, D.C. through such an interesting time. Prior to being in DC, I was in Minneapolis and working at our consulate there. So we have 12 consulates throughout the United States, evident of how important this trading relationship is to us. And I covered the US Upper Midwest and worked on agricultural trade policy and advocacy in that role as well. I'm actually very privileged to say that I grew up on a farm. I'm from a small cattle farm in southern Ontario, which is still in the family. I married another farm kid. I went to Ireland and found him, but we won't hold that against him. And he's from a cow-calf background. So the farms are still in our families, and we have lots of chores to do whenever we go visit, and our kids love that. It's been an absolute pleasure. And what I do every day is quite varied. There's no 2 days that are the same. Last week, or I should say earlier this week, we had our Minister of Agriculture in town, so I had the opportunity to accompany him to some meetings, and that was quite a pleasure. Next week, I might be working on a market access issue or some other file of importance to Canada and U.S. agricultural trade. So there's no 2 days that are the same. And it's such a pleasure and an honor to not only be a public servant, but to also be involved in the agriculture sector still, to work for my government, to work for the taxpayers, and to work at the embassy, which is fantastic. We're the only embassy between the White House and the Capitol. We like to say that's because of our wonderful relationship with our trading partner. We also made a very savvy real estate investment, so that worked out quite well for us. We have 300 employees at the embassy, a third of which work on security and defense files. A number of other government departments, such as my own, which is Agriculture and Agri-Food Canada, which is your USDA equivalent, are represented within those walls as well. And we have our first female ambassador to the United States from Canada.
Interesting.
Kirsten Hillman, who is absolutely fantastic. So it's an honor to serve under her direction as well. So it's, again, a pleasure to be here. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Christine. I appreciate that information. There's always something new to learn about each other, isn't there?
Absolutely.
Brenda, would you mind sharing as well?
Well, thank you very much for inviting us, and it's a privilege to be here. This is my second Farm Bureau convention. My first was in Puerto Rico, which was an amazing experience. Now we get to see the mountains and the snow, so those are two very contrasting cities. Well, I've been at the embassy for close to 15 years, which is not which is not usual within the diplomatic community. As Christine, I am part of the embassy, but I work for the Ministry of Agriculture, so SADER, Secretaría de Agricultura y Desarrollo Rural, so Rural Agriculture and Rural Development, and we do not have a rotation system. So again, I've been privileged enough to be in Washington, D.C. for a while now.
You must be doing something right.
Exactly, that's what I like to think as well. And what is unique and I think it's very, very important is that throughout these years, I've been able to see a change in the agricultural community in Washington, D.C. Before, we didn't really have that many women. And when you went to a meeting, there were only 1 or 2 women in the room. Now, fast forward 10, 15 years, now we have a lot of meetings with a lot more women. Some of them are led by women, and there are some meetings where the majority are women and only 1 or 2 men. So that's certainly a very nice change in the dynamics, and you see the gender shift a little bit towards that tendency. Plus, there's a lot of women now in power now. They are taking the decision making is under women, and you see that in associations. You also see it. You see it in the government, in government-to-government relations. You have an Undersecretary of Trade who's a woman now, so that's very important. You also have USDA women posted abroad. The USDA official who represents USDA in Mexico is a woman now, and the Canadian representative in Mexico is also a woman. So, and right now here at this trade show, you have 12 countries represented, and 4 of them are represented by women. So not only Canada and Mexico, but you have the EU, you have Portugal, you have Ireland, sorry. So you have a lot more women out and about. So that's something very interesting.
So women are stepping up.
Yes.
Yes, finding their voices and stepping up into leadership. Very good. So Dave, I want to make sure that everybody gets fair airtime and that we all understand what your role with the American Farm Bureau is, and how do you engage with the embassies?
Okay, well, I'll start with my role. I handle the trade issues for American Farm Bureau. I'm one of the lobbyists, part of the public policy department. So my role is trying to take Farm Bureau policy on trade and move it forward, get it done, whether it's working on trade legislation with Congress, interacting with both USDA and the Office of the U.S. Trade Representative, bringing trade problems for solutions, ideas for trade negotiations. Do some international travel when there's meetings to go to where Farm Bureau needs to be represented, and also to learn about issues going on in other countries that may affect our trade. Things like what are other countries doing, how are they addressing issues, whether it's climate, whether it's soil health, whether it's new products, or some of the age-old issues, whether it's preserving some trade barriers that we'd like to see removed. So those are the kind of things that I do on a day-to-day basis. And interacting with our agency colleagues in town, there is so much to learn from what other governments' point of view on an issue. And that, of course, all helps in how good an advocate I can be and how good an advocate we all will be. And it's also a lot of information sharing, a lot of reacting, a lot of discussion about, is this bill really going to get introduced, and what is going to happen, and who's here in politics, and what does perhaps change, or policies and governments, whether it's Canada or Mexico or another country, what does that mean for us as American agriculture, as American agricultural product exporters? So there is just so much good interchange. And there's also the opportunity to visit with visiting officials. Christine just said her agriculture minister was in town. Awful lot of Canadian folks come down to visit with, learn what they're here for. Same with Mexico, when they're coming to town to visit with U.S. government officials. They're so good as to very often come by the Farm Bureau office, visit with us, include us in other meetings, so we know where everybody stands. We're trying to make programs, we're trying to move our policy in the best way we can. We hope we can do it collaboratively. Sometimes we go through other means. That's the way we advance policy. Isabel, I just want to refer back briefly to an event that you and I both participated in last September called the North American European Union Conference. These were producer groups from Canada, Mexico, Farm Bureau from the US side, and several European countries. And we worked on finding common ideas and common solutions to sustainability, climate change, trade, consumers. What can we work on together to make agriculture better in a whole bunch of areas? So there's always something more to do, right? There's always plenty.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
And that conference was fascinating to me. And to be able to talk to the farmers, and now here to talk to you representing your countries here in the United States, being able to see you in Washington, D.C. and keep those connections. From my growth in learning about trade, about our relationships, it's such a privilege to be able to talk to each one of you specifically right now, and to have that depth of relationship. It's not a political wall when we have a conversation. Right. Now, those may come into play later, but that kind of leads me to my next question. So what issues with the United States are most important to each of your countries? Who wants to start? It doesn't matter to me. You go ahead, Christine.
Sure. I think, first of all, we're generally well aligned on so many things, and that's wonderful. But like any friendship or marriage, there's always a few differences of opinions, and that happens from time to time. But from that, we always learn from each other as well. But maybe I'll just highlight 4 areas that we're looking for further collaboration, maybe a bit more cooperation. The first being more food security and resilient food systems. And we certainly saw the importance of that during COVID, to have those very resilient integrated supply chains, for example. We see in Canada the food prices going up, just as we are down here as well. And that's something very concerning, but at the same time we want to ensure that we're supporting our farmers and making sure they have a good, healthy living as well. So finding where we can assist with that and ensuring that there are not regulations that might stand in the way of that and might disrupt some of those integrated supply chains. So something we've been watching quite closely is voluntary product of USA labeling, and how that may, and I think that your president actually said that this morning mandates can come from outside of government too. And I thought that really related well to this, in that if there are a few retailers who pick up on this and want to have that go forward, that could really disrupt the integrated supply chains that we've built over the years, and that work so efficiently for us together. So that's something we're watching. Sustainability in relation to the environment is something else that we're watching very closely. Certainly agriculture is very vulnerable to climate impacts, and innovation and increasing productivity kind of go hand in hand with that as well. So there's a lot of opportunity for us to collaborate on some of that innovation and utilize some of our resources on both sides of the border, looking at how we can measure impacts, and looking at how we can ensure that producers are being rewarded for being the best stewards of the land, because at the end of the day, we all want to leave that farm in better condition than what we received it, and so on and so forth. To me, that's what sustainability is about in terms of environmental sustainability. Science-based and rules-based trade is also a big thing that we talk about quite often. When we have farm bureaus come into our embassy, that's a topic that comes up in conversation quite a lot. We want that transparency, that predictability, and so we're watching some of those state-level measures, for example, that maybe aren't quite as science-based as we'd like to see. Proposition 12, it was mentioned this morning, and that's something that we're watching very closely as well, again with the integrated supply chains. And then finally, emergency preparedness. And we've been very fortunate to have a zoning arrangement put in place so that we can address some of those animal disease situations that might come up from time to time. For example, we're doing a lot of collaboration in relation to African swine fever and how we can prepare if that should happen at some point. Certainly with COVID, with situation in Ukraine, natural disasters, there's been a need for us to continue to collaborate on those animal and health disease matters. So that's another area that I think that we can continue to work on together, bilaterally and trilaterally as well.
Yeah, you mentioned some things that are just vitally important to our farmers in attendance here, and those watching at home as well. So I think we're all on board and all on the same page there as far as the things that you're mentioning. Yeah. Brenda, what would you like to share?
Echoing what Christine is saying, and just drilling down on the concept of cooperation. I really think that we really need to go back to that the basics. And one, don't take the relationship for granted, as we were saying. Because sometimes we do take it for granted, no matter what it is. But we forget what would happen if we don't have that relationship. We don't have that certainty and that partnership, and we're not able to talk to each other, which is crucial. So we definitely need to make sure that we're talking to each other, that we continue, no matter what it is. Yes, we have our ups and downs. Sometimes we don't see eye to eye on some issues, but let's agree to disagree, and without each other we will not be able to move forward. So we better remember that and make sure we can to move forward. We certainly go back to that basic stage and talk to each other. So work on the things we can, and if we have to disagree, then let's work on the other things that we do agree on.
Just like any friendship.
Yes, yes.
Because I thought that we're part of a community. So.
Yes, that's very true. There are more things that makes us alike than what makes us different. So that's certainly, we have learned that the hard way, I think. So
that's so true. It seems like sometimes these our borders even though they are not physical walls always between us, you know, we tend to react to things as if they are.
Right.
You know, not really allowing each other the space to be different and yet to be able to collaborate together as we're talking about today. Dave, could I get your perspective on this, any issues that we might have with Mexico, with Canada, in reference to what they were just sharing with us?
Yes. I think as three countries, and we have so many interactions, we've had so much growth in trade over the last 30 years through NAFTA, now through USMCA, it has just grown so much in so many areas, including ag, and we're each other's biggest trade partners. But we're also three countries that all exist in other organizations. We're all World Trade Organization members. We're all members of the international standard setting bodies for animals, for plants, for food. And so we need to work together to make sure we're keeping science-based standards that allow trade to flow and grow. You know, it is a competitive world out there, and people are seeking advantage, whether amongst ourselves, which of course that's the nature of business, but amongst other countries, which also are trying to compete for markets, you know, maybe trying to be a little protectionist in some areas that we don't agree with. So that's a lot of time. That is, like you may say, a little more behind the scenes, but that's what a lot of the day-to-day collaboration is all about, trying to keep these systems up, flowing, working for business, working for farmers, working for the consumers who all benefit from this flow. And, you know, of course there's issues. There's always trade issues. Parts of, you know, some of the farmers in our country, they're impacted by imports that happen when they're trying to sell their products, especially seasonal produce. So we're trying to work through those kinds of issues. You know, but I've always thought, my experience has taught me over these many years, I'll take the issues. I want the trade. Let's get the trade. We'll work on the issues. Over time, most of these things are usually amenable if people really work at it and have really good support from their home governments. Because sometimes the answer to a trade problem or an international problem is a domestic approach. Maybe it's not always an international approach. So you've got to be flexible and inventive on trying to fix a problem for people. So that's what we all work on.
So in relation to what you all just said, and what specifically you just said, Dave, it sounds like if we're running up against issues, challenges, where there's some differences, and we're working on something domestically, would you say that at this level right here, the embassy representatives, the attachés, the consulates, the whatever, that when we have these discussions, we can get that level playing ground, so to speak, to be able to share it with our political leaders? Is that fair, or is that too broad?
That's your answer.
I think we can be that conduit for those relationships, and it's all about communication at the end of the day. Having those conversations with the farm bureaus when they're coming into our embassies, that's a huge privilege for us. And to share the stories about the common concerns and areas for collaboration moving forward and success that we can have working together. So certainly we can collaborate too then on how we engage our government officials on those areas of concern and areas for further growth. So I think that, yes, we can definitely be utilized in that way as far as that avenue for that communication.
And as she was mentioning, when farm bureaus come and visit us, it's really nice to be able to sit, talk to each other, and express our concerns, yes, because there are some concerns both ways, and just see the other side of the story, which is also important. During the past year, I don't know, I want to say that we have become very popular. The Mexican embassy has become very popular. We have been able to host a lot of farm bureau groups from many different states coming into the embassy, and it's really important for us to learn from each other. We get to hear their concerns, learn their perspective, and on the other side, they get to see our side of the story, hear us, and I like to think that they come out of the embassy having learned something new, seeing things with a different perspective, and thinking that we can certainly collaborate with each other, and that's invaluable. So I think those visits are crucial.
Yes.
And at least for me, they have become one of the most important parts of my job, because that helps the relationship at the ground level. So I don't know how many of you have visited Washington, so I encourage you to do that. Tell your state officers to organize trips to Washington. I encourage you to join them because they are very important, and more women to attend as well, because sometimes there are not that many women in the groups, but certainly very important for you guys to come visit with us, and it's seriously a privilege to welcome you into our embassies and talk to you. So we will not be shy, and everything is you can talk about anything that you would like. Nothing is off the table. We can have a clear and honest conversation about whatever issues you want. So
I always find it interesting when we have groups come in, I often ask them, what are the top 5 things keeping you awake at night in relation to the agriculture sector? And oftentimes it's things like labor, succession planning, young farmers, crop protection products, changing consumer expectations. I'm trying to be diplomatic about that, how I phrase that. And those are the exact same issues that we're facing back home. And I think that, Brenda, you would say the same. And so for us to compare notes on topics like that and to learn from each other is so valuable. And I don't know if there are that many countries that around the world that have that same opportunity, have that consistency in shared values and our objectives for the sector. So we are very fortunate to be in that position, so I highly encourage folks as well to capitalize on that and use that as our strength in the global marketplace. And we really do have something wonderful, and we always say we want to keep a good thing growing. So that's something that I think that I would absolutely encourage as well.
I think you both, it's a question that I had later on, and I'm glad that you just brought it up naturally, because I think it's so important. You don't know who your neighbor is until you reach out to them and talk to them. So Dave, I'm going to pose this to you. If we've got state farm bureaus making a trip to Washington, D.C., and they want to visit an embassy, how do they go about doing that, arranging that?
Well, they reach out to us in the Public Policy Department through their State Farm Bureau organization. The person who brings you there, usually your National Affairs Counsel or somebody else on the staff, make a request. We have a whole way to do that, and as far in advance as you can, just for us and for these good people. And we'll get it set up if they can. They're very hospitable. I know they want to do that. And we see the benefit. You come to Washington. The thing is going to the Hill, you're meeting with your representatives, you're doing all that. But the world is in Washington through the embassies. And there's probably 100+ countries represented with an embassy. Some are nice and large and beautiful, like the Mexican embassy and the Canadian embassy. Some are small offices that might have 3 or 4 people. It all depends on the country. But we have issues with all kinds of countries that we think will benefit from that direct communication. You know, when you're speaking to an embassy officials, they have to communicate back to their superiors, to their capitals. We hope and assume that some of what we say goes back into the message chain, goes back and people will see it and know, well, that's what American farmers think. And if we're going to do this with the U.S. government, we've got to know where American farmers are. It is a part of the decision-making process. From our point of view, it's part of the influence process, how we can achieve our goals. And so to have people from the states to tell real stories and flesh out what our policy is. And of course, they haven't mentioned yet, and I'll mention for them, one of the great side benefits of all these visits, they're rock stars in their embassies. They get more visitors than any employee their embassy will ever have. They're noticed by their ambassadors. That's good for us too.
Well, and you're noticed as well. When we had our minister in town, he said, well, where is Farm Bureau on this issue? And I think that says a lot. It really does. So I would be remiss if I didn't mention that.
That speaks volumes to me,
really
because when I was first engaged in Farm Bureau, it was going to Washington, D.C. that helped me understand the power of us as members. And when you made that statement, Dave, about the world is in Washington, D.C., that is so true. And there are a lot of us in this audience that can't travel or don't have the time or whatever reason. They don't travel to each of those countries, and then let alone will they see the agriculture they want to see. So what an opportunity to be able to come visit your embassies while they're in Washington, D.C. and make it both an advocacy and a learning experience. Absolutely. So I really appreciate you being open and giving us an open invitation to the embassies if it works in the schedules for everybody. But so anyway, so thank you so much for bringing that to the forefront. I think relationship at every level is important. So one of the questions that we were given was, what does USMCA mean for the future of trade growth among us three nations? Our three nations, I should say.
I think it's strengthening the great thing that we already have. Again, let's keep a good thing growing. It's increasing that bilateral and trilateral agricultural trade. It's strengthening those integrated supply chains that we've developed over so many years, and that we're so resilient to COVID situations and other challenges that we've seen along the way. And that helps to make sure that our agriculture sectors operate efficiently, effectively, at full capacity, and provides us with an opportunity for success in the global marketplace. So it's not just that trade between the three of our countries or bilaterally, it's also what we can do together to feed consumers outside of our borders. And that's becoming increasingly important as well as we see the population of the world increase. And just to give a few examples, like we sent Canadian wheat to Mexico, to the United States to make bread that's exported around the world. Canadian pig genetics to the United States and Mexico as well. Some of the oats that you had in your cereal this morning may have been from Canada. Strawberry plantlets from southern Ontario or Central California, planted there, re-exported to Canada sometimes. It's a lot of back and forth. And US biofuels, of course, sent to Canada to meet some of our mandates. So it's so incredibly important. 1/6 of US agricultural exports ends up in Canada and beyond, and we re-export that as well. So it's really, I think, Brenda, you mentioned that we're stronger together, and we can really feed the world together, feed our North American consumers, but then looking beyond our borders too. And I think that's what USMCA is really about, is ensuring that we can do that, and it provides that pathway for success for the sector.
And deepening the concept of regional food security. I think that would be very, very important for us at this point, because no single country can do it alone. I don't think anybody has the luxury or is in that position to really secure food safety and security by themselves. So we need reliable partners, and what that your neighbor to the north and the south, right? Working together for the benefit of all, for the benefit of 5 million consumers in the region. So that's a lot of people, that's a lot of mouths. As far as I know, we all need to eat, and that will not change anytime soon. And then we can also export together to the world. So a product that I'm sure that you all know, Mexican beer. Well, we use Canadian malt, we use US hops, produce beer in Mexico, then we send that beer to the world. Mexico is the largest exporter of beer in the world. So some of that product containing Canadian and US product goes not only to the US and Canada, but all over the world. So for the benefit of the world's consumers, right? Because everybody likes Corona and Tecate and all those brands, right?
That's a great picture, though. You know,
Seriously.
Mexican beer. So is it Mexican beer? Is it Canadian beer? Is it U.S. beer? Is it a North American beer?
Is it a North American beer? Yes, exactly. The concept of North.
Yes, it's a great beer.
Exactly. The concept of North America, because I do believe we sometimes I think along the way we kind of sometimes forget that the concept of North America, building things together. We're good at that. And agriculture is a great example of that. Absolutely. Nearshoring right now, it's a trendy word, but agriculture did that since the beginning of NAFTA. That's why we have integrated supply chains. Everything, we build things together, and we grow things together, and we produce food together. So.
You're right, and that concept of, I'm going to say, imaginary borders, or borders that are there but for a purpose, but if we can just forget about them for a while and do things together with the same goal in mind, the same benefit. I think we all benefit from that. And I think sometimes we get hung up on the differences, and as we were saying earlier, we have more in common than we actually have different. I'll let, Dave, do you want to answer that question as well?
Absolutely.
Okay.
I'd love to talk about the U.S.-Mexico, Canada agreement. I'll take it a little bit back because that's my history. You know, how long have we all three been neighboring countries as entities of countries, not geologic time, but as countries? 100 plus years, 150 years. And of course there was always some trade, but there wasn't a lot. And there were a lot of barriers there were tariffs, non-standard, but there were all kinds of barriers. And then we get into the late 80s, the US and Canada make an agreement. Frees up some trade. Not in all areas, but it's a start. Then in 1993, the North American Free Trade Agreement brings in Mexico. The US-Canada FTA becomes a part of that. And trade over time really starts to grow. If you look back to the pre-NAFTA times, our agricultural exports, both Canada and Mexico, were probably like $7 billion. Now we're over $60 billion. There are number 2, number 3 agricultural export destinations. You had to have this process, both agreement that we would over time lower barriers, but a process to resolve issues. And then we got the updated US-Mexico-Canada agreement, which took that even further. And so we kept a lot of the tariff-free, I think a better process to resolve issues, some of which we're engaging in right now, whether we have a dairy issue with Canada, corn issue with Mexico, but we have a process to get that resolved. Try to make sure that trade continues, that trade grows. And unique in USMCA, born out of the frustrations of some of our other agreements, there's a review process. That in 2 years, there will be a formal review, all 3 parties will come together, and we'll ask the basic question, how is it working? And what can be better? Is there a way to resolve some of the issues through more negotiation? Does it need to address new issues? Even since USMCA came into force in 2020, look at all that's happening on climate and sustainability. That's not really in there. And so, you know, it is a process of coming together to grow. Resolving issues, there's always disputes. These are commercial entities trying to do business, there's always disputes. But I think we have a good process to work forward. I'm looking forward to this review. I'm looking forward to the USMCA keeping this a very stable and productive relationship. With once in a while a few issues to talk about, you know.
Keeping the job interesting.
Never dull. We need interest, yeah. So Dave, I want to ask you a little more detail about that answer, because I love learning these things. So in 2 years at this review, who's there and where does it happen? Well,
from our point of view, this will be both led by the Office of the U.S. Trade Representative, but certainly USDA will be there, other entities. There's a very integrated trade process in the U.S. government. Lots of U.S. government agencies have a role in it, but it'll be led by U.S. Trade Representative, Department of Commerce, Department of USDA, and they'll work out positions ahead of time. There'll be formal discussions, but a lot of the work that's already starting is to deal with what are issues now and what's the future going to be. And are we going to keep this 6-year or whatever year review process? You know, where does this go? There is some discussion, and it hasn't, that I know from the U.S. government side, been fully addressed, but that maybe this will be the process. Should there be expansion? There are countries further to the south of Mexico that would like to join, that want to be a part of this large and growing consumer market and get the benefits from that. So there will be plenty to work on in this process, and we will all have the opportunity to engage. This won't just be the executive part of our government, it'll be Congress. House Ways and Means Committee, Senate Finance Committee, the Agriculture Committees will all have a role in shaping the U.S. approach.
Thank you. So that means to me, if it gets to that level, that means it takes all of us to support the things that we're trying to accomplish as a region. I like that. Okay, I like that. So we have our charge, and we need to pay attention, right? Okay, all right, very good. So with that review coming up, with you saying, Dave, that there's already some things being talked about, that looking toward the future, what are we looking toward the future? What are some of those things?
Well, I think we should probably mention too that between now and when that review takes place, we each have an election taking place. So we could be in a different position. Who knows what that's going to hold. But I think at the end of the day, what we would be looking at is, again, emphasis on that science-based and rules-based trade. And where we can grow on what we already have accomplished and really see those trade numbers increase. And continue on with that growth of our agricultural trading relationship to support the innovation and the integrated supply chains that we mentioned earlier, to support rural communities, put more money in the pockets of producers. I think we all want to see that at the end of the day too. And I don't see government as interfering, but more of as a facilitator to success. And the path to that success can be through USMCA. And so I think that that's a wonderful opportunity for us to work on something together for success in the industry.
Okay. Anybody else have any?
I mean, there's always room for improvement, right?
Yeah.
So, but and never forgetting and understanding that we need to keep whatever we have as the basics. So build from there.
Right.
Not try to reinvent whatever we...
Onwards and upwards.
Exactly. Forward all the time. So yeah, take that opportunity to address issues that are changing. I mean, yes, as you were saying, from 2020, the world is very different, right?
Yes.
As we all know, we lived through a pandemic. So things are very, very different since 2020, and now it will be an opportunity to reaffirm our commitments, of course, and try to move forward together in a very, very challenging environment as well, because the world right now, the world is in a complex situation, and things are pretty harsh in some areas of the world.
So USMCA, from what I'm hearing from you and what I even knew before this, seems to me to have had a positive impact.
Yes.
What would you say is maybe the biggest, or what positive impact has it had?
Overall, we've seen those numbers increase. We've seen that growth, and I think that's a very clear indication of success to see those numbers increasing each year. To have forums through which we can discuss things like biotechnology, because we didn't have that in the previous iteration of the agreement. So that's definitely been a success as well. So I think that if we can build upon that, we're going to be in a really great space going forward.
I think it's very telling that during the NAFTA negotiation process back in 1993, agriculture was the sector that was kind of very tough, and it was the last chapter to be concluded. Fast forwarded to the USMCA negotiation, and our chapter was, I think it was one of the first ones to be completed, because everybody was were on board. We all wanted the same thing, which was to support and continue with what we had, right? Which was free trade, and we didn't want to go back to anything other. So we certainly the agricultural sector has been a success story, was a success story of NAFTA and now USMCA. As we have said, trade has increased exponentially, and we also, in regards to food safety as well.
Yes.
Food safety, and we have been working for 30 years in food safety standards, and we have improved that communication regarding pests and diseases. We literally, when we sat down in some of the SPS negotiations, it was just to say hello to the other one, to the other negotiator, because we have been working together for 30 years. So we just needed to sit down, be like, okay, let's just review the text, let's add whatever it needs to be added, and that's it. Closed. Good. Next. Thank you very much. So it was exciting to see it, and it was, and some other countries were very impressed, because the agricultural sector is usually very sensitive for countries, and it's usually a very touchy subject. So it was, we have been asked, also, how did you do it? I'm like, well, just
communication.
Yes.
Dave, did you want to add to that?
Sure. You know, trade agreements don't exist in any kind of a vacuum, right? USMCA on a political level passed overwhelmingly bipartisan majorities, strong majorities in the U.S. Congress. It will be and is a model of how to do these going forward, okay? But at the same time, it fits into a larger economy, it fits into a larger agricultural production systems in all three of our countries, and there are other constituents, there are other people who don't love it either, who don't love it, right? You balance that. As any government, as any sector, you have to have balances. We have some of our fruit and vegetable producers have concerns with imports. You have your corn growers, you have your dairy sector. There are sectors, as I said earlier, there are always problems to work on. We work on those problems. Can we address them more through this review? Does more have to be done domestically to increase domestic use for our products or new uses? So it doesn't, you know, it sets up a process for growth, for help, because we think trade helps, growth helps, our farmers. Nobody wants to be told you have to produce less. That is nothing for North America. None of us or our farmers ever want to hear that. And they want a good market for all of their products, but they also want a fair market, right? They don't want to be hit by too many imports that ruin their prices. This is just something we constantly work with, and we'll always keep working on those issues. And perhaps this process, in some areas, we can make progress on that.
I can't believe this. I don't know how the rest of you feel, but we are getting toward the end of our time. But I want to ask each one of you, if you were to leave our audience with one thing, two things, I'm not going to limit you, but what do you want to leave the audience with today?
Such a great question. I think we're stronger together, and we need to keep this good thing growing. We really can make a difference with our relationship being so strong, our integrated supply chains, to feeding our own consumers and feeding the rest of the world as well. There's so much opportunity for us to collaborate. As I said, there are more similarities than there are differences. We can share stories and share best practices on addressing some of those issues that we have. We love to have groups come up to Canada and tour. We've had different state farm bureaus come up to Canada over the years, as well as coming into our embassy, so we welcome that and hope to see that continue as we move forward. So thank you so much for this opportunity.
Thank you, Christine.
Well, for one, I've learned from all of you that farmers, no matter if they're Canadian, Mexican, or American, they go to bed, they rise up in the morning and go to bed with the same worries, and because they are facing the same challenges. So and they need to they want to provide to their families, and they need to feed our population and help to feed the world, right? So we're stronger together, certainly. We again, please reach out. We are here. Let's continue talking, cooperation, and I think the world will be a better place if we just continue doing that.
Our relationship is the envy of many others, so we can't forget that. We should be very proud of that.
And for us within the embassies, I mean, the embassies have a lot of different sections, right? And the embassies in Washington, although there are many, we are only not that many who have an agricultural sector. And we do tend to, because of that, we know each other, and we work together, we go to events together, we get to travel together, and we all know each other. And even within the other staff at the embassies, they are always like, oh my God, you guys like know each other and work with each other and talk to each other, and you guys are always very happy because we have something in common, that we all want the same thing. We all need to provide for our countries, and we need to provide food for the world. So we are an envy. We are the envy of some of the others.
I think we have the best jobs. I really do.
I was going to say,
we love our jobs.
I can see why you're the envy. You're both just so easy to be with. I just have really appreciated that. Dave, I will give you that question as well.
Brenda and Christine are such good examples, but they're here representing. There's another 20 agricultural attaches that have joined us at our convention, representing their countries. You can visit, doing the same kind of work, offering the same kinds of opportunities. And we're so happy to invite them and have them come here to join us. And also, they're just as open to visits from State Farm Bureau groups. Come in town. You're a particular regional place, somebody you wish to visit with. please reach out. They're very happy to talk about issues from their point of view. They want to talk about their agriculture too. And some of them are exporters, some of them are major importers, but they want to work on the issues just like Brenda and Christine do. So I think that's a good way for us to appreciate the resource that is in these embassies in Washington, D.C. on the ag side and in so many other issue areas that they cover. And from my experience, the embassies are an integral part of Washington life, where they don't lobby, but I've learned that they educate. They educate the administration, they educate members of Congress. Sometimes we enforce the education, sometimes we have to re-educate, but it's all part of the process. They are an integral part of the Washington policy-making process.
This has been fascinating and such a privilege to be able to talk with, well, all three of you. I get to talk to Dave a little bit more often, but with all three of you, and Christine and Brenda, thank you so very much for taking your time.
If you allow me one last comment.
Yeah, I absolutely will.
I just wanted to let you know that for the very first time in Mexico's history, this year we will have a woman president. So the sky is the ceiling for us. Yeah, hopefully the U.S. will soon have a woman president, but we will have one in 2024. So hopefully.
Thank you.
Thanks. If Brenda got one last word, I might have
go
one
right
too, if
ahead.
that's okay.
Go right
I'll
ahead.
just mention that we have a trade show booth here, and we'd love for you to stop by, and we'll address any questions that you might have about Canada-U.S. agricultural trade. Happy to chat about that, and it's quite a privilege and an honor for us to have this booth here at this event over the years. So thank you very much to Farm Bureau for that opportunity.
So thank you for your time here, but thank you for the work that you do and for your generosity and hospitality inviting us. Thank you, Dave, for helping us accomplish that and getting us there. Thank you all for attending, for listening, and for taking your advocating seriously, and realize that it's not just about your farm, but your farm is about the world, as the world is about your farm. We are stronger together. We can do more together than we can alone, and it's in that uniting and relationship building that we will end up a stronger country, a stronger region, and a stronger world with more sustainable agriculture, safer food supply, and able to feed more people without some of the political barriers that we now face. So thank you all so very, very much, and I look forward to talking with you again and maybe visiting your embassy in Washington, D.C. Thank you, Dave.
Very
Thank
good.
you
Thank you all.
and enjoy the rest of the convention. And be sure and visit their booths, because we do have 20+ countries represented here.